Hello, everybody, and welcome to a little Delboy chat. I thought that after the success of last week with Mamemeister, that I'd go a little bit further afield and bring on a friend of mine who I've known for quite some time now, and I've been on his chat channel a number of times. But this guy is multifaceted, really. He's not just films, he's a big gamer. In fact, that's where I think his actual channel started from. So I just want to welcome my friend Pete, or Playtendoguy as his channel is known. And Pete, introduce yourself, please. Talk about your channel, everything that you want to talk.
Hi, everybody. Thanks ever so much, Delboy, for inviting me on. It's great to be on your channel. I think this is the second time I've been on your live stream now, and it's always been a blast. So thanks ever so much for that.
That's good.
My channel's Playtendoguy. I do loads of different things: video games, films, Blu-ray hauls, game hauls, and also doing loads of live streams as well, which Delboy has been a part of. Doing loads of different things, and it's always great to do them. Learn new stuff about both games and films, and also meet some amazing people as well.
Yeah, I think that's really quite good about YouTube, is it's really diverse, and some great relationships can come from it, you know. There is always the dark side of YouTube, which we always sort of like try and avoid. But on the whole, I think everybody respects everybody, you know, especially the people that we've got on our own channels. And to be quite honest, it's kept me entertained, and I've learned an awful lot of tricks and things doing a YouTube channel. Like some people know already that I've set up a Discord just recently. That's all come from something like from YouTube, and it's a free voice for us all. So you started off with your channel with games, was it, Pete? Is that where it started, or was it films and games? Or
Oh, it was just games. I started off just reviewing games, dropping reviews for the games I was playing for the moment, doing a written review, and like had gameplay on a video and like talking over it, and did loads of different games from Switch to Wii to PS4. Must have done about 200 reviews over the 2 or 3 years that I did reviews.
Wow. And these reviews were both video and written, did you say?
Yeah, I write the script, then put the gameplay on, and then like obviously do the voice work and put it overwards, and then just upload it.
Because I know also that you're a big filmy, and you're on a site called Letterboxd, is that right? And that's where you do written reviews, don't you, as well as your video reviews? So you haven't done written on a website somewhere, you know, where you've written down a review of something then and given it a score for games, but you have for films, you've critiqued films that way, yeah?
Yeah, I do want to try and do videos for them, but to be honest, it's quicker just to do them on Letterboxd, because by the time that I get around to doing the video, the film is probably not of the moment, and many people have already seen it.
Yeah. So just going back to your youth a little bit then, Pete, what's the earliest memory you've got of a video, what we call a video game now, you know, a movable object on the screen that you controlled? What's the earliest game that you can think of?
Wow, I remember playing, I had a plug and play system that you used to put in like all the different yellow and white cables. Had a Mega Drive of that with Sonic the Hedgehog, and also playing the first Siphon filter on PlayStation, probably when I was about 3 or 4.
Oh, wow, that's going back some. So yeah, there's been lots of these plug and play devices. You could even in those sort of like later years just have a joystick full of games, and you plug the actual joystick into the component cables of your TV and start playing those. When you think back to those, do you get any nostalgia to go back to them?
Yes, I do, because they've done compilations now of those sort of games on like consoles, and like they've done an Atari one recently that looks quite good.
Yeah.
And whenever I see them, I always pick them up because it's nice to have. It's like the Sega Mega Drive collection. They've released that no end of times, like the Sonic games. Every time they're out, I always pick them up because it's nice to have and just go back to see how far these series or just singular games come from.
Yeah. Have you noticed any differences though between playing those on a modern console with the controller,
Mm.
obviously, that comes with that machine, and the original that you played those on? You know, even if it was just a knockoff or something of a earlier console. Did you notice that they felt a bit different? That the controller, you wish you'd go back to the old controller because it's a bit harder with the game controller and all of that
Yeah,
sort of.
with the game controller, there's certainly a difference, and also depending on how they've displayed them on the TV as well, with like different like graphics settings, whether they've been blown up to fit the screen or the
Mm.
original aspect ratios. And there's also like sometimes I've noticed, especially with like the fighting game ones, is that there's an input delay.
Lag, yeah. Yeah. So would you consider therefore then that you miss that old hardware? I take it it's gone by the wayside for the many years. Have you ever felt that, or I wouldn't mind looking on eBay and finding one of these, as because they're bound sure to be cheap, and picking it up for yourself so you could relive that?
Yeah, it would be nice to actually buy like old consoles and old systems that I own just to see what they're like now. Go back with them with like 2024 vision and see what it's like.
Yeah.
I think probably may feel a bit dated, but there'll be a nice bit of nostalgia there.
Yeah, I mean, nostalgia is a very big thing for me. You know, I mean, I like to look forward, and it's brilliant. You know that there's going to be some brand new thing that's just around the corner. But I also like to have that little toe in the back, that
Mm,
I go back to an earlier time where I go, oh, that was comfortable. I really like that period. I'd
mm.
like to go back. When you have looked at some of these compilations and that, have you ever been disappointed? You know, oh God, I don't remember it like that. Oh, what was I doing? What's all that about?
Some games I remember in the Sega collection playing and like, wow, yeah, they're not very good. They're not very good like in modern times. But
Mm.
even then, I'm just like, well, it's nice to play to experience something that was quite popular years ago. I think all games were here for a reason, and they've all helped evolved the genre, the whole stuff in its own way. I,
Yeah. So when you think about looking back at this, can you sort of like in your head instantly, because your brain's much faster than mine, go through the consoles from what you had in the past up to now without missing one machine?
yeah,
That
yeah.
do you want to read that out? It'd be sort of like a tour de force of your experience.
Well, I've had like plug and play games of like Mega Drive ones, I've had Namco ones, I've had Atari ones. From proper systems, I've had all the iterations of the DSs and the 3DSs.
Right.
Um, with the Wii, I've had a Wii U, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and yeah, that's about it. Yeah, but I've also
Yeah.
had that PlayStation Portable, the new portable streaming system. That is really good. That is.
Have you had a Vita? Have you had a Game Boy? Have you
I have
had?
had a Game Boy Advance SP.
Yeah.
They were really good as well. And the original DSs, you used to put the Game Boy in them as well, so you had both the systems in one.
I think what's strangely missing from all of that, I think what comes up instantly to me, is that there's no Microsoft in there, no Xbox, no Xbox, no Xbox 360, no Xbox One,
Yeah,
Series X, nothing. Is that
never
on purpose?
never really gotten into Xbox. There has been some like IPs that look interesting, but like Sony's like done a load of story-driven games, and the Nintendo stuff has always been something I've been with like since childhood. So that's where I've stuck. The Xbox also, they seem to don't really know what they're doing now, and they're releasing a lot of their stuff on the PlayStation.
Yeah, that's true. Because I mean, there was back in the day exclusives, weren't there?
Mm.
And something would be on the Xbox and it would say exclusive, and that meant basically the other systems wouldn't even have a look in for at least 6 months, and then suddenly after about 6 months it would suddenly appear on that system. And while that's going on, the same thing would be happening with PlayStation. Does that still happen now in modern gaming now? Is exclusivity still something?
I think it is with stuff like Final Fantasy for PlayStation. Xbox occasionally gets it, but PlayStation mostly has it. I think it's more PC side of things now. I know the new Indiana Jones game's coming out on Xbox at Christmas, but 6 months later for PS5, which is good.
Yes, I saw an advert on Steam when I looked at Steam today. It came up saying ready for pre-order, $59.99. And that brings up another thing to me, $59.99. Now, I know that money's tight, even for people that are, a little bit older and have got probably a little bit of money that they've got at the end of each month. But for youngsters, that need to buy a house and all of that sort of stuff, $59.99, that's like you'd have to save for 2 or 3 months. How do you get through that? Do you buy things much when it's first out, or do you wait until sales? Or
for a game that's special, if it's really good reviews, then I'll get it day one. But if it's one that I've got a faint interest in, I'll wait until the sales. It's much easier. Especially with game, I've picked up many different games recently for like £2 or £3. They just get them rid.
Yeah, I've watched those videos of yours, and the only downside that I can see of those videos, and it's not annoying, but it is, if you see what I mean, is that it's always after the fact. And when I then go and try and look myself, they're all gone, or they've gone up in price, or the same.
They are still available online, so you can buy them online, but you got to pay £5 postage, which is a joke.
Yeah, I looked at one, and there was one game there that you mentioned, and when I went to look, and I went to game purposely where you said is where you got it from, it had gone up by £15.
Which one was that?
Oh, this was 2 months ago. I'm constantly looking at some of your stuff when the game sales are on, and I'm just going, oh, that one actually doesn't look too bad. In fact, actually, if he bought that many and he got 5 PS4 titles for £2 each, and I've got a tenner to spend right now, I'll go and have a look. And I therefore went to the sale and I put prices below £5, and there was only 2 titles that came up. The rest of them all gone. I'm going, oh, bloody hell, I missed the boat again. Look at that. And then it's back to Kex if you want something sort of like cheap. And do you go to many like Kex sites or whatever it is to buy certain titles, or do you really want them sealed?
I definitely prefer them sealed. The occasional time from game, if they're like £2 or £3 and they're not sealed, I'm like, all right, and fair enough. Long as the disc's okay. But I've had experience in the past with CEX. I worked there, so I've known how they've thrown the discs about, and I'm not too happy about that.
I'm not a big fan of their cleaning machine either, really. I've actually got that cleaning machine. I bought one on eBay. It was quite a few £100s, but it uses a grit, and it sort of like cleans the surface with small sand grit. It spins around so quickly that it buffs, but then it's plastic, so it's going to wear away the plastic, and that's another layer gone, and that means that you're not going to be able to do much with it. Okay for scratches, if you've got a really deep scratch and you've got no other choice. But yeah, I think there are far more cleaner ways of doing it. It just requires a bit more elbow grease than using cutting compounds that you'd use on your car. I think that's probably going too far, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So have you, because of the stuff that you've seen on films, what used to be big for me, with a nostalgia belt looking back, there used to be licenses of films to turn to games. Back in the day, for me, there was RoboCop and Hudson Hawk and the Addams Family and all of this sort of stuff. Did you get caught up with those? You saw a film and went, "Oh, I want to buy the game." All of that. I know that there's a couple of like Evil Dead ones now that are online and so forth. Have you? Can you remember what your earliest licensed game might be there for?
Oh, I remember like through the Game Boy Advance days and the DS days, all I would get was the licensed games, and most of them were awful.
Aren't they just? There aren't that many license ones that weren't just a platform game or something, you know, like Home Alone. You know, obviously it'd be the little boy jumping around collecting something, and you're going, what's that got to do with a film? Back to the Future, exactly the same. It's like, sure, this is supposed to be something that happens in the film. No, I do find that the early ones were a lot like that. There were some gems, don't get me wrong. So when you consider the latest licenses of games, and I mentioned that Evil Dead one purposely because that's the one that I can remember is not too far back. Have you actually played that game?
I have played it. It's not too bad, but it's a live service game. It just makes me wish there was a proper single player game of the Evil Dead. Like, there's so much you could do with that film series, and you just done a Dead by Daylight ripoff, essentially.
Yeah.
But there's been two good licensed games recently, both by the same developer, the RoboCop game and the Terminator one.
I played the RoboCop one. In fact, I did a live stream of that on the PC, and I thought that was really quite good. And that brings a point to the fact that some games coming out on the PS5 and the Xbox, you know, X, they're on the PC as well. And the PC has always been what I consider to be the chameleon of the consoles. You know, you can swap out your graphic card and all of a sudden you've got an extra punch of power, and then it's playing at the same level as these consoles. Have you ever had a powerful PC and played PC games at the same sort of level as you've done with that nice monstrous PS5 that I can see in the background there?
I've never had a PC, but my partner Amy, she has one, and we played that Black Myth Wukong, and that looks amazing on the PC. It does.
Yeah, because the one thing I mean, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I would say 80, maybe 70, maybe 70% games are quite long on consoles. But if you go to somewhere like Steam and you look at the games that are there, not only is there a huge history of them, but even ones that are coming out now, there are some just pick up and go ones, and there are those equally long games that that you can love on a console. So do you mix up a little bit? Do you like the just pick up and play and just for about 5 or 10 minutes, or do you go for the longer ones really?
There's a couple of good ones. Let me find them. Right, here we go. This one here, this one's only about a 2 or 3 hour game, but it's like a fun Doom-like shooter, Severed Steel.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. I've heard of it.
Very much like Max Payne, but first person.
Right.
Really fun game, only a couple of hours. Picked up for about a tenner, and it's a great time. It is more creative than most of the shooters you see these days.
How many hours would you say is in that gameplay wise? Something like 80 or something, or 70 or something?
Just 10 hours probably.
10. Oh, right. So it's one of the quite the medium ones then, really. I'd say 10's medium. You can get some these days that are like 2 or 3 hours long, and that's it.
Yeah.
But then there's always those role-playing games that I love, the ones that go, oh, it's 80 hours, and if you want to do all the side quests, it's 120 and all of that sort of stuff. Do you do much more online play with friends?
I'm not huge on online games. I've dabbled in the past. I don't mind the occasional Call of Duty, or maybe if it's like Borderlands, or occasional free-to-play games. Maybe I tried Fortnite, or that new Marvel one looks pretty good when that comes out later the year.
Yeah.
But I'm mostly more single-player person. I just like the story, the worlds, and also when you have other people joining in, they do fun to mess up your game.
Yeah, because I mean, even those Game Boy games that you said that you played when you were sort of like younger, they had link play, didn't they? If you had another person that had it, you could actually link play and all of that sort of stuff. So did you also have anybody come around your house and play at the same time? Where you took turns or two joysticks together and try and race or something like that?
That's probably a bit of a depressing subject. Never had many friends as a kid. I was always the one that was bullied.
I didn't mean to bring up a sad memory. It's just that I know that the other thing about me when I went to school was when I got back, I did my homework, and then you'd go upstairs and you'd play on your computer. But sometimes your mate would turn up and you'd be playing a game. and they would then, oh, can I have a go? And you let them have a go, and then basically you tried to get high scores and stuff. And there'd always be the time where they need to go and they say, can I borrow the tape so that I can take it home and play it on my machine, or have a copy of it, because piracy was around just like it is now. So I just wondered whether people like that used to do that, or used to take with a handheld thing. You used to be able to take it into school. Maybe at break times you'd play. Is that something that was confiscated off of you when you're at school, because you're not really supposed to take consoles or games into
No, I hid it away quite discreetly.
And what's your take on phone games? Games on mobile phones. I mean, I'll tell you now, I dislike them with a passion. Don't like their business model.
They are just gambling machines.
Yeah, basically. But what about those adverts where it says, oh, there's a little bloke and he's firing 500 missiles, and then you get all this, and then when you actually get the game, it's nothing like that whatsoever.
It's pretty much all these tower defense games, isn't it?
It always annoys me when I see those adverts, and it's got a bloke and it's got these little sliders, and there's money at the bottom and there's lava at the top, and you have to slide these things up, and the bloke either dies or you've burnt all the money up. But when you buy it, it's like you say, a tower defense game. What's that got to do with what the advert I just saw? I wanted to play that bloke. What's all that about? Anyway, look, I better start bringing up some things. I think we've got quite a few people now that have left comments.
Awesome.
So we'll start off at the top. Here we go. Through the lens, Josh. He says, "Hey fellas, hope you're doing well. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Josh. Brilliant.
Hope you're doing well, mate."
Danny Duke says, "Hi, how are you doing?" I am good. That's
Danny.
Brilliant. Got Mac Chats. Well, lads, how the bleeding hell are you?
Hey, Mac.
Pretty good. Then we've got, my mate, and probably your mate, Jim Jam Movies and TV. Good evening. He's had a very busy weekend.
Yeah, he went to London, didn't he?
Yeah. Met up with how many people? Jesus. I was looking at them. You couldn't get him in the camera, could you? Yeah. I'm here after a busy weekend down London, down in the smoke. Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Oh.
Pete, when are you getting to Birmingham?
Oh, I don't know. I've never been that further up north, so I'd like to go one day. Definitely would love to meet up with you, James, because when I first started to do the streams, James was my co-host. He was.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I had James on pretty much every single week for a good 6 months. I did.
Wow, it's really good then. Are you going to have him back on shortly, maybe? Be a really nice reunion, I would have thought.
Oh, I definitely would love to get James back on the stream, but it's like life and all that, because a lot of the times James was at work when I was doing the streams. But yeah, definitely would love to get James back on the stream. It's been a long while, and I see you met up with him as well.
Yes, about 3 weeks ago, even though I was in absolute pain, I pushed myself to go and see my friend Denny, who I've been speaking to for nearly 2 years, and Jim, and I invited Jim Jam along. Things were going on in all of our lives, and I said, you know what? I think for all of our mental health sake, it'd be really good if we met up. It was a bit of an adventure to get there. It was a bit of an adventure to get back, but we had a whale of a time. We were going in all of the sort of like charity shops. We went into Forbidden Planet, had something to eat. It was really, really good. Just like Jim Jammer said, it's at the end, it's really sad. It's like, oh, when are we going to meet again? I've really enjoyed today and I didn't want it to end, and all of that sort of stuff. It really does make you want to hark back and go, oh, I want to do that again sometime. So yeah, I mean, many positives of meeting people, and I couldn't think of a nicer bloke than Jim Jam to me.
Totally agree.
Denny obviously is somebody that I've wanted to meet for a long time. He's been my sort of like co-partner really on the early chats, talking about dystopian films, Doctor Who, all of this sort of stuff. We're sort of like brothers separated at birth or something. It's amazing what he's got. I've got what I've got. He's got. Bloody hell, it's a bit scary, really. So that's brilliant. So I hope you got your answer there, Jim Jam. Fantastic. Hi, mate, from Denny to Jim Jam. Ian Hill, hi, Delboy and Pete. Hope you are reet grand. What are your favourite gangster films?
Mine is right here. Long Good Friday.
Long Good Friday, good
Such
choice. I
such a
bought
great
that.
film.
I bought that as well at that, at the same time. I mean, obviously, the one that comes to mind is obviously The Godfather, because I saw it at a very early time, and there wasn't that many sort of like gangster films other than British gangster films, which were gritty.
Mm.
But I really like the idea of a family business. You know what I mean, and all of that. Mumbling an Italian sort of like connection and all of that sort of stuff. I think The Long Good Friday is a very underrated film. And I say underrated because it's talked about now. Back then, when it first came out, it was talked about, but in the in-between years, nobody talked about it. It was almost like, I've seen that on telly 100 times. Who gives a shit? All of this sort of stuff. I think that's what's really good, that a new audience like yourself gets to see that film.
Yeah.
A bit like the Death Wish films. You know what I mean?
Right.
For years and years and years, I remember that the Death Wish films were just recognized as being cut films. Nothing to do with whether the story was good or whether Charles Bronson's performance was any good. It was all, it's Michael Winner in it, and that's that crap cut stuff. Loads of people dressed up like punks, and it's supposed to look like New York, but it looks like a bombed out housing estate in the middle of Edinburgh or something. You know what I mean? That's how people really talked about that film. Michael Winner, he wasn't exactly a pleasure to talk about as a director. It's not. It's a bit like Roger Corman, really. I mean, I love the Death Wish film. I think
They're great films. I really do enjoy them. I remember watching the first one when I was about 8 or 9 years old. Way too young, but they're really good.
Would that have been on like VHS, or were we in DVD land then?
That would have been just as DVD started to get popular, I think.
Yeah. So you might have seen it sort of like on a sell through then, because there was a lot of films that came out that were quite expensive. Then there would be sell throughs that were ranged in price from about $5.99 to about $12.99. And I think the Death Wish ones would probably fit into this gold movie club type thing with $5.99 sticker on in WH Smith's or something. I remember buying lots and lots of those just to fill my collection. It was really quite good. Happy days. So Denny Jukes. Oh, I hope you got your answer there, by the way, Ian. Thank you very much for the question. Godfather, possibly. Goodfellas. Yeah. Casino. So many good ones, really.
Yeah.
Denny says to saying hi to Ian. And Cy Robson's here as well. Hi, Cy. Thanks for showing up. That's brilliant. He's got hi Denny. We got lots of this. Hi guys. That's Steve. That's my mate Steve's Gaming. So have you, Steve? You little bastard. You. That's my little salute that I have all the time with Steve. He knows I love him. He's absolutely brilliant. Danny Jukes. Hi Robson. Hi mate. Let's see if we can get past all this. Cauldron of Stardust. There we go. Playtendo. I was a console-only gamer growing up. First question. Judging by your name, were you as well? And if so, do you, as I, feel like microcomputer and PC games were like a different world? That's an interesting question.
That is a really interesting question. Well, hi, Cauldron of Stardust. Yeah, definitely was built up on consoles and still love a console. But yeah, when I play PC games, they are definitely feel like a whole new world. It is quite good that you with PC is that you never have to upgrade and buy a new console every 5 or 6 years. That's one thing about them. They pretty much go with the time, don't they? You just upgrade them when you want to. Like with the PlayStation 5, that'll be here for 5 years, and then it'll be a PlayStation 6, even though it hasn't really felt like this generation has properly kick-started, to be honest.
Yeah, I think COVID did that, really. Did you actually get your PlayStation 5 during COVID, or did you get it a little bit later, or
Two
or you
years
got it
after
just
launch.
before?
2 years after
Oh,
launch.
wow. So is yours a first generation, would you say, or probably a second generation? Because I think they revised the board, didn't they?
Well, yeah, this one's a slim. This one is, but I've got one at home as well, and that's the one from 2022. I think that was the new one that they brought out then, the new revision.
And were you ever a person that had multiple consoles? You know, like I remember back in the day, if you were quite good with money, if there was an Xbox and there was a PlayStation and there was a Nintendo, console like a Switch or a Wii U, you always tended to find the Nintendo was the middle one. You didn't have many people that had a PlayStation and an Xbox, but you'd have a PlayStation and a Wii U, or an Xbox and a Wii U. Do you see where I'm going with this? And I just wondered, did you ever get into the situation where you've had a couple of consoles and they've been two different manufacturers and you were playing them equally, sort of at the same time?
Well, I was mostly Nintendo all the way up to the Wii U years, and the Wii U years were pretty like a drought, they were. So that's when I got into PlayStation, and it was mostly PS4, Switch, and PS5, juggling between them and actually getting the same game for both consoles, because playing it on the Switch kind of feels like a cool little oddity because having it on the go and all that.
Yeah. Do you prefer to play the Switch on a screen, or are you quite happy to have it just in your hands and the screen?
I quite like it in the hands. The screen is really good. I got the OLED version, and that really does look nice. I do think the Switch is definitely coming to the point now. It's like we need something new. They've definitely got the most out of that generation of consoles there, but they still find ways to surprise, which is good. I mean, the system's been out for 7 years now, so that's good.
I've heard rumblings that there is something new on the horizon. I haven't, believe it or not, I usually around about this time, and you are quite right, 7 years, there'd be some leaked concept art or something that makes what it looks like. But in this particular juncture, I just about know that there's a name. So I don't know anything much about it. Nintendo always tried to, I feel, innovate a little bit. So there'll be some sort of like, well, I wouldn't like to call it a gimmick, but they always have something like, oh, this one's got movement control, this one's got it's the ability to dock and be a hybrid then of a gaming console and a console on the move. Can you think what might be in Nintendo's store? Do you think it'd be AI driven, something like that, or?
I personally think what they'll do is just keep on going with the Switch train, probably up the graphics more, and then do some new controllers probably do some different things with that. I just really don't think that they'll stray too far from that success of the Switch, because they're onto a winning thing there. I think it'll just be an up-res Switch, like more graphics, better power, maybe one or two new little gimmicks that probably never be used by many of the games.
Yeah, I think the difficulty with the Wii U in particular was it was a botched launch for a start. Secondly, I think people didn't really get the concept of the screen, because it looked like a tablet with bits on the side. And when I say tablet, I mean chunky tablet, like you were playing with something that was designed for a 3-year-old. Do you know what I mean?
It looked like a leap pad.
Elite. That's what I was trying to look for. It was almost like that. The box looked lovely. In fact, mine's still down there, a black one, and it looks like a Wii, pretty much like a Wii at an angle. But it's only the dock and the console that makes it so that you play, and then it's a chunky mess, really. I mean, I don't know anybody who used the pen much. That pen, I think, has been stuck in its holder since its inception.
And I remember when they announced so many games for it and just canned loads of them. It was such a shame.
But there was some really good stuff on there. I really did like the Mario games. I really did like the Zelda games on there. They were quite polished. Everybody was saying but you're going back to 2D on this. You've had Mario Sunshine, and you've had Mario 64, and you've got Mario Galaxy, and now you've got this sideways scrolling bloody Mario again. What's the allure? But then I think what they did is that they sort of like enhanced what that 2D looked like, and it's almost like there's 60 frames for him walking, where and it's really just a standard like 5 or 6 frames to make him walk. It's just, it looks so beautiful going across these landscapes. I just think that they just refined and went back to basics, and I wonder therefore what's going to happen with Nintendo on a new console, because there's always bound sure to be, oh, and we designed it for Mario, and this is the game that we've designed this console for, and look what you can do.
I'd like to see have a better operating system. The Switch is a little bit basic, never has changed before, and make it a little bit more social with like Facebook and YouTube integration, a bit like the PlayStation. Get some media apps on as well, and just again up the graphics power. That's all it needs to do.
Yeah, because I think the difficulty with that is, and this is Nintendo's closed environment, is the fact that everything has to go through Nintendo. Their whole operating system has to be written by them. That means that their multiplayer system has to be designed by them, not use any type of Microsoft technology, which means that they're really in the arc, because they really need some ex-Microsoft network people to sort of like work for them, so they can tell them this is how multiplayer works, guys. Because your system's a bit old. It's like looking at a Samsung smart screen and then looking at the Panasonic's version of it, and you've got this interface that looks like it was designed 6 years ago on the Panasonic, and you've got this super smart version that happens on the LGs. Now, that's not putting Panasonic down, because I've got a Panasonic TV behind me. I don't care about the interface because it's the power of the panel, But their interface is clunky as hell. It looks like it was designed. It looks like a DVD menu. You know what I mean? It's absolutely atrocious. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's sort of like scroll down a little bit more. We might have some more here. So Ian says, hi, Cy. Cy says, hi, Ian. And FC says, Gamer Vlog says, evening, fellas. Hope all is well, unlike me. Just recovering from a bad migraine. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, LFC. I hope you get better soon. I miss your blogs.
I hope you feel better soon.
Yeah, brilliant. Steve's Gaming. Someone give this man a ZX Spectrum and a Commodore. Well, I was going to bring that up, and it's probably a good juncture actually to talk about that here. When people mention these names to you, which is a good, let's see, you were born in, so the 64 would have been dead for about 8 years, right, at this time, because it finished about 92, 93, right? When you hear these names, do they bring anything to the playfield for you at all? They won't bring nostalgia, but have you ever been intrigued to go, what are they talking about, this Spectrum and 64 lark and all of this sort of stuff? Have you ever been intrigued? Or
I've looked researched them for like YouTube videos and checked out some games' humble beginnings, and definitely is very basic compared to where we are now. But it's nice to look back on them, and I do have a lot of respect for those sort of consoles. They started it off, and if they weren't successful, wouldn't be here today. They were all here for a reason, even if it did take about 5 minutes to load up a game.
Yeah, but I mean, it must be quite weird, really, because when you turn on your console, you've instantly got a menu, and when you put the disc in, or the disc is already installed, the game just instantly is there. When I switched on a Commodore 64 for the first time, I had a blue screen with a flashing cursor under the word ready. Now, that's it. Now, would that, do you think, have been something that you could that you would adapt around when you first turn it on? Would you know what to do to load a game? Have you followed or watched enough YouTube videos to know, I could load a game up?
Yeah, I think I could load up a game up. It'd just be interesting to see like how antiquated that design is, or how basic it is compared to where we are now. And
Yeah.
I think it would be fun to play a few of them. Obviously, like the gameplay mechanics would be probably just as simple as moving left to right, but there's a sort of like, well, not nostalgia, but a fondness of it. Like this was entertainment for kids back in the 80s and 90s, and like it's all come from somewhere. Though, like now, a lot of those sort of games are probably because they used to do similar games like that on little LCD handheld things for like based on Spider-Man and all that. I remember having a few like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the thing is that if I mention, see, this was the days before there were mascots, right?
Mm,
Mascots to me come across when the Mega Drive was around and when the SNES was around. You know, you had Mario and you had Sonic the Hedgehog, right? So if I mention a couple of characters, then like Jet Set Willy, would
yeah.
do you know what I'd be talking about?
Jet Set really wasn't that developed by Rare, one of the first games?
No, you got that
Was
one wrong on that one.
was
It
it?
was yeah, Jet Set Willy was a follow on to something called Manic Miner.
I've heard of Manic Miner. I
Yeah,
have.
and it starred a character called Miner Willy.
Ah,
Jet Set Willy was the first time that instead of going from screen to screen, you know, you finish off the screen and you go to the next one, and there were about 20 screens. Jet Set Willy was a house, and you had to
ah,
collect all the items, and there was, you know, 40, 50, 60 rooms, which is an incredible number when you consider you had a 48K of RAM or 64K of RAM that these
mm,
computers had. Um, and you know, to be quite honest, it was a joy to sort of like play those because you didn't actually have a start and end point. You know, you go wherever direction you want. A platform game like Manic Miner would be linear. You
mm,
finish at first level, you go to the second level. When you turn to the 20th level, it would be game over or start again at the beginning and do it all again. That was the difference between the two, and there literally is only under a year between the two. So
wow.
things were moving incredibly fast technology wise. Programmers were
Mm,
starting to get tips and tricks to make things like seem like they were never ending.
mm.
The first game that I ever played that I thought was never ending was a game called Elite. Now you
Oh,
might have heard of Elite. It's sort of like a status. In fact, there's a version of Elite now that you can play. It's Elite Frontier, is it? I don't know. Elite
sounds familiar.
yeah, anyway, a space trading game.
Mm,
Back when I was playing it, it was vector graphics, but there were something like 8, 9, 10 galaxies, but there was something like 250,000 planets, all named differently,
mm,
every single one in 48K of RAM. That's what
wow.
we're talking about. It's like,
Mm,
how the hell do you do that? And these programmers knew how to do that. That's why it was absolutely wonderful. Anyway,
mm.
I've been reminiscing a bit too much now. I could talk for bleeding hours, me. So we'll go on. Oh, so someone give you Miss Manners ZX Spectrum Chrono 64. Yeah. One of the things I enjoy about UK gaming channels is that, unlike in the US, where consoles were king, I've opened up my eyes to a whole new world of retro microcomputer gaming. Yeah, it's what I was sort of like trying to say. When you turned on a computer back then, you needed a tape deck or some sort of device to input stuff into.
Mm.
Consoles are self-contained. They're very, very difficult to upgrade. There's very little that you can upgrade in them now, other than maybe a new hard drive. Is that something that you've dabbled with your PS5? Has it got a bigger hard drive in than the stock one that came with it?
No, but it doesn't store many games.
Oh, yes. I was going to say, is that one of the big hurdles that you've got? Because it must be bloody awful to keep having to delete it and then basically then load the next one up and all of
Yeah,
that.
there's the new Mortal Kombat was 150 gigabytes. Final Fantasy 150 gigabytes. It's ridiculous how big the games are getting. Add
What
on
do
the
you
patches as well.
what do you get? About 3, 4 games? Is it now before the hard drive's full? Something like that.
Probably about that. But I've been playing
Yeah.
like a lot of smaller games, so I've managed to fit about 20 on there, which is a miracle.
Yeah. It does have a USB port though, where you can put an external drive. Have you tried doing any of that? Because it'd be a slower drive. It would load things slower, but it would give you the ability to have more games installed. Have you done any of that?
No, I haven't actually decided about that, but that could be something that I might look into.
Well, I mean, I remember back in the day when I did that, I used to buy things like called on something called Xbox Arcade.
Mm.
I'd buy all the little shop ones or the ones that you got free with your subscription, right? That were smaller games. And I'd put all those on the external one. And then the games that I wanted to run really fast, I'd install on the memory or the hard drive of the console so that I was playing all the AAA titles as they're supposed to. And then who cared about the little arcadey ones that basically, I didn't really care too much
That's a
about.
good idea.
Just admit, I did do that back in the day. Let's have a little look. We've got Denny Duke saying, please like the stream. Thank you so much. I do hope people do like. And by the way, we've got 20 people watching, Pete.
Wow.
So I'm very pleased. Thank you very much. And we've got NES forever. So what's your opinion of the NES? I mean, that's where Nintendo's sort of like video game start point is. Although they were a gaming company that made playing cards back in the very
early cards, weren't they, back in years ago?
So, have you got a fondness for the NES, or actually any experience at all playing one?
Oh, definitely. Nintendo really loves to milk them and bring back every single console with the subscription to the online service. You get a whole host of all of them. And they're great to go back to. A lot of them still hold up very well today. I have a fondness for Super Mario Brothers USA, Super Mario Brothers 2, the one where you pick the items up and throw them. Even the Lost Levels is a lot of fun.
The second one's got a bit of a history because it wasn't actually called Super Mario 2. It was actually a Japanese game that was rebadged.
Doki Panic, weren't it, or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. And then, of course, the mammoth, what we call Super Mario 3, came along, and that sort of like changed Nintendo's fortunes, I think, for quite the reputation of it for quite a few years. I mean, everything then was a map, a little dot that you'd go to and play that level and save point and all of that sort of stuff. So ahead of its time, absolutely.
Some great games there, like the Zelda games, Metroid, even like stuff like Ice Climbers is pretty fun.
Funny how Nintendo didn't want, although they tried to go into the CD market, stuck to their guns with the cartridges for a long period of time.
Their deal with Sony fell down, and it led to their biggest rival.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were developing that CD add-on, and basically they fell out, and PlayStation 1 was born, and I think they're probably going, shit.
Well, they let PlayStation down, or Sony, in the most embarrassing way possible. They went on E3 and said, we're doing a CD with Philips, and they were all ready to go for the Sony ones. Just like, wow, there must have been a lot of bad blood there for a long while.
Yeah.
But they're releasing PlayStation games on Switch now, because Lego Horizons, that's coming to Switch, and that's a PlayStation property. Never thought that would happen.
Yeah, is every game sort of like the sort of console that you've owned been a cartridge-based or CD, DVD type system? Have you had anything slightly different? I mean, you've had built-in ones, haven't you? So you've had the built-in ones.
Yeah.
But you haven't loaded. Have you loaded anything in by a disc? You know, like an Amiga or anything like that. Have you done that at school? Did you know anything about disk drives and stuff?
Haven't tried an Amiga, but yeah, we did do like disk drives and all that at college. But it's quite an interesting bit of technology.
Yeah. Try finding a floppy disk these days. It's pretty difficult. Try finding a DVD burner. I don't think you buy a PC anymore with a Blu-ray burner or anything like that in it. So there you go. Things change. Steve's Gaming. Ooh, that's about the NES. That's where that's coming from. Back chats. My first video game was Centipede on the Atari 2600, or you might know it as the VCS. I don't know. thoughts that when you were looking back at the history of sort of like consoles for when you were doing your channel, did you come across the Atari 2600? Give any of them a try or anything on those?
I think like one of the plug and play games that I did have Centipede, and it was an Atari one. Can't remember a lot from Atari, but I know they've had a whole range of great iconic games that they've put in like so many different compilations. I did pick up this one the other week or the other month. And this is like a mini game collection of them, Atari Mania.
Oh, Atari Mania, that's on Steam as well, by the way, Atari Mania. Yeah.
It was about a tenner from Smibes, and I thought, oh, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. And are you actually going to get round to playing it? Because it's still cellophaned up, you naughty boy. You haven't even taken the cellophane off of that yet.
Well, quite a few of them are still cellophaned up, but yeah, I'll get around.
How far behind do you think you are with games, and how long would you think it would take you to get caught up if you were to take the cellophane off and try and play them?
Oh, I don't know, probably a couple of years, maybe more.
So, which brings it to an interesting thing, that the biggest problem that a person like me has got in regards to history of computers, consoles, games, arcade games, is you can't see the wood for the trees. Thousands and thousands of games. You look at your computer and you go, I want to play a game, but I just don't know what. And you load something up, you know, an emulator or a huge hard drive full of stuff. And you're going, I just don't know. I don't know what I want to play. And you're looking more. And then by the time an hour's gone by, you've gone, well, I've really missed the opportunity for me to actually play anything now. And all I did was just look at a load of words going up and down the screen. Does that happen with a person that's got a big collection like yours on shelves, and you can go along the shelves and see the spines?
Yeah.
Is it easier for you to choose a game that you'd want to play?
It's well, with the PlayStation, it is a little bit easier because especially if a game is installed onto the system, it's like, oh well, I might as well just choose from these ones because it'll take a while to install a new one.
Yeah.
So that's what I normally do. But yeah, I always have times where I look for a shelf and like, I don't know what to play. Very much like with movies, it's like, oh, I've got all this here, what to choose, what to watch, and you end up not doing anything. But bizarrely, I even just get like a kick out just looking at some of the artwork for some of the games because they look great.
Yeah. So do you get into that also problem? Well, I'm going to ask this question first. Do you trust cloud storage for your save states, you know, for that you've got on your games? Do you trust it, you know, that Nintendo or Sony have got that point so that you can uninstall the game and go back and then download that game? How long do you think that they're going to keep that save state for you?
That's another thing. Yeah, I know with the PlayStation Plus, I've already run out of save states for the PS4, so I have to delete stuff for games that I've either traded in or don't have anymore.
Yeah,
so
because I mean, I must admit, I've got a game called No Man's Sky, which I keep meaning to go back to. I played it last when I had my PS4. I've got a PS5 now, and I can install it on that, and the visuals have been much more enhanced, you know. And there was at the beginning something where you could link your to your PS4 and have your state copy across into your new console. You have to have them switched on both at the same time. But it's been that many years now since that game was at that stage, and now it's had lots and lots of updates. I wonder to myself, I bet you my save state's not even compatible anymore, and I'm going to have to start from scratch.
Well, what you do is, I've had it before with loads of games. You just put the disc in, update it to the most recent one, and then there should be an option to upload to cloud for PS5 storage on the PS4 version. Tap on that and it will still work. It will just migrate it into the new version of the game. I've had it with quite a few games and it works pretty well.
Yeah, I just wonder sometimes whether how long's that, if it was no longer on my machine, but I actually put my save state up into the cloud. When I haven't got my PS4 anymore and I've just got a PS5 and I install the game, is that state going to still actually work? Is it actually going to download and work? I just think to myself, there's going to be a time where that will go, your old save state will no longer work with this version of this game. You'll need to start again.
That's my biggest worry with the all digital future. That is the biggest issue with gaming today. All digital future. Getting rid of
Yeah.
physical games, digital only. You got to have online connection to play a single player game.
Yeah,
It's
got all
rubbish.
that. That's what they call digital rights management, right?
Mm.
Been around for years and years and years, and it's been the bane of my life. I hate it. In fact, we used to go to a site called Game Copy World back in the day. And when you installed a game, you used to go to that website and find an executionable that replaced the one that was on your machine, and it stopped it having to check for an internet connection so that you could play it. Those days are sort of like gone now, and it's just sort of like acceptable. Do you think we've sort of like just decided to just let it happen now? I'm so fed up of fighting DRM that I'll just accept it now. Spyware is something that I just going to accept because I can't battle it anymore. There's anything I say doesn't mean anything. You think we've sort of like have rested on our laurels? I think is the best way of.
I think we have essentially just let it happen, and it's just happened by mistake, really, due to popularity of games like FIFA and Call of Duty doing it, and developers have seen it and said, all right, and we'll do it. I remember playing a game once and I had to go through about 19 pages of T's and C's saying, I accept, I accept, I accept. I just want to play a game, not sign a legal document.
Yeah. That's right. There is tons. I don't know really too many people that have ever actually turned around and read that all the way through to the bottom and know exactly what's going on legally wise with it all. You know what I mean? It's absolutely atrocious.
Well,
I agree with you on that.
whether you read it or not, all you know that it won't benefit you or just benefit them.
Yeah, that's very true. So that first game, Centipede. So just thinking about that for a moment. Centipede was an arcade game. Now, did you, as a child, go to Seasides and go into and put money into 10p, arcade, video game machines like Ridge Racer and?
Oh, Ridge Racer's great. I really do like that one.
Oh, right, there you go.
Yeah, there's a place in the city that has a retro place called Retro Replay. You go there, you pay about a tenner, and you can use all different consoles, fighting machines, dancing machines, old Centipede machines, even stuff from like Japan. It's all in Japanese, and it says like, oh, there's a little notice saying this is what it actually means. All this writing does. It's cool to try them out, and it's a nice experience. It elevates. If you played it at home on your own, it would be just a fun little novelty, but playing it in that environment elevates it so much more.
Yeah, all the sounds all in one little room, and they all intermingle with each other. That's what nostalgia is all about for us, you see, because we used to have a traveling fair that used to come to town every year, and it would have one of the stalls, that was there, instead of being hook or duck and all of that sort of stuff, they would have all these arcade machines, and each year they would be a different arcade machine. It'd be a different set. And then, of course, I used to go on to something called an Army Air Force base, and they had what they call a BX center. This is where the Army officers would relax. They could go bowling, and because there was bowling there, they had arcade machines. I remember seeing my first Gauntlet machine there. That was back in 1985, somewhere around there. That was brilliant. But of course, you come in 96, 97, and therefore an age for you to play arcade games. The arcade era was pretty much gone. So do you like going to these retro places to see all those machines?
Oh, they're wonderful. Wonderful.
Do you go to them a lot, or?
I have been quite recently to them occasionally, because the one in the city, it's nice to go to, and like playing Street Fighter on like a controller is okay, but playing it on the original 3 buttons and doing all the prompts like that on a proper arcade machine is really cool. Where I lived, like the seaside resorts were quite kind of stuck in the past, so a lot of those arcade machines I did get to play in the mid 2000s because they'd probably been there for decades. And I have noticed that a lot of people do buy their own like arcade cabinets now. You can buy them from Smythe's, you can buy them from Game, and they're quite popular.
Oh yeah, there's they make these mini versions, there's bar top ones, and you can, like I say, if you're really heavily into your machines, you can buy the PCBs themselves, the actual arcade machines, and put them in new cases and play them. Absolutely marvelous. It really is sort of like a varied world for us that are into electronic stuff. I tend to find I've got my own arcade machine that's broken. It needs to be repaired, but it's a Nintendo 10 machine where it had 2 screens, and when you put the coin in, you bought time. And therefore the games, there was about 10 games there, and they were things like Mario Brothers, Track and Field, Duck Hunt, all of that sort of stuff. And when you put your money in, you bought 3 minutes of time, you put another 10, it was 6 minutes, and so forth. And you could interchange between all the games. Absolutely wonderful. Bit basic because it really was an NES in an arcade, but still wonderful times. So Cauldron of Stardust says, my first video game was Armor Battle on Mattel Intellivision. Wow. Does the Mattel Intellivision mean anything to you? Because we're going back now to ColecoVision and all sorts of stuff here when we're talking about this. So,
well, I did have a plug and play game that wasn't in television. It had like 50 or 60 games on, and yeah, I can remember it. The graphics, if I remember correctly, were very, very, very basics, just like prime colors, and that's it. But I remember enjoying them, but like compared to like the Namcos and the Segas, it was definitely a little bit basic, but still some fun little games on there.
Yeah, like I said, I saw the Intellivisions and the ColecoVisions in Currys and Dixon windows when they were, and at Christmas. Me being a kid, it was like, oh, I want that Christmas. Really want that, you know. And even back then, the consoles were, you know, 199, 299 pounds. That would be an awful lot for my dad, who was working in a factory, to actually get the money up together and also do something for my sister. So yeah, I'd have loved to have been able to afford every console that was out there in the market, but no, I wasn't able to do that. It was one or the other, and I was lucky to get one. So there we go. LFC says, my first 2 video games I ever played was Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt on my older brother's NES. Nice. So I take it you know what Duck Hunt is.
Oh yeah, the dog going like that all the time.
And in the Back to the Future film, where you actually see Marty try to actually play Duck Hunt.
They brought the Duck Hunt dog into Smash Brothers, didn't they, as well? Which was nice to see. And Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt was on the same cartridge, if I'm not mistaken, later on in the NES's lifespan.
Yeah. And there was an earlier game to Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers being the side-scrolling platform behemoth that we all know, but there was Mario Brothers, which was a single platform type thing with turtles that you had to knock the turtles up through the platforms to turn them on their backs and then kick them off the screen.
Very, very same amount of time as the original Donkey Kong, wasn't it? Around about that time.
Yeah, which is the first introduction to Mario, really. He wasn't actually called Mario back then, but they gave him that name later on. Jumpman, that's right, yeah. Very good. Mac Chats, Cy Robson, hiya, mate. Cy Robson, hiya, mate. Unrelated, but R.I.P. Sven Gordon Eriksson. Oh, my God, I didn't know that. So he's died today. What a shame.
Yeah, very sad news.
Yeah, definitely rest in peace. When I first heard that he was diagnosed with his was it cancer? Yeah, it is cancer.
Pancreatic cancer.
Pancreatic cancer, yeah. I felt sorry for him. Everybody was doing exactly the same. And isn't it horrible to think that you've got a time limit that is now physical, that you can actually see compared to a theoretical one that you've got in your head, you know. If I get to 72, I'll be lucky or whatever, you know.
It's just probably the fact is I remember him from like the World Cup from 2006. I'm not a huge football fan, but I always remembered him. I was just like seeing him like a couple of years ago. I was like, wow, where's the time been?
Yeah, actually thinking about that, What is huge or was huge on the consoles for a huge amount of time is FIFA. What's your thoughts on FIFA? Did you love it at the beginning, hate it now? What is it that you hate about it if you hate it now? Etc. etc. So FIFA in simple terms to you.
I'm not a huge fan of FIFA. I do have one or two for each of the systems. They're fun to play. I kind of prefer them than actually watching football, but I'm not a huge football fan at all.
No.
I do think they're a hive of greed now. They don't really change much with the gameplay. You've played one, you've kind of played them all. And again, like with the football ultimate team and all that sort of stuff, it's just like all that money that they must earn for it is quite disgusting. And I'd understand if they use it to promote some new original games with it, but now they just keep with the same old, same old.
Well, look, I'm of that age where I don't get what the differences are between each year, other than the player names.
It's just the
Tell
kits
me,
they upgrade. That's
yeah,
it.
what is there an engine change ever that you can see? Because I'm looking at it and I'm going, I can't see anything different here when I'm
Well,
watching this.
Well, I did do reviews for the Switch ones every single year, and they were exactly the same ones, even down to the menus. All they did was just change the kits, and I'd review them, and I got to a point where it's like, all right, and I'll just because it's the same game, I copied and pasted my review from last year and just said, right, I said, you don't deserve me doing my review for it. It's just the same game.
So why, as a nation, do you think that we're gullible enough to actually then just keep going out and buying it? I mean, surely we know now that if you go into a second-hand store, that you can see all the old ones at 99 pence because they flooded the market and everybody bought them. So
It's
why is it that a new one will come out and we're still flooding out and going buying it when the only thing that's really changed is the names and the kit?
we're a country of football lovers, plain and simple, and a lot of people are casual gamers. I'd say about 70% of people who own a PlayStation probably only buy 2 games a year, FIFA and Call of Duty. That's it. And they're their games. And you've also got parents buying it for their kids. It's so easy to see how it's so popular.
Yeah. See, that's the beauty, I think, a little bit of the simpler days for me when I was having a PC game and had the internet, right?
Mm.
I used to buy something called Football Manager every year, and it was each year there would be a different year, and it's basically a spreadsheet program, but it was really
Mm.
quite exciting, right? And when you got to the next season, you just downloaded a patch, and there we are. You had all the new teams, the teams that we used to be in the Premiership and now dropped down to the Championship. There was no buying. Oh, here's another new version. There was a version that you could buy if you wanted to, but the
Mm.
older version, if you registered it and everything, you just downloaded a patch. There you are. Great.
Mm.
Now, I have no idea, other than we're not going to lose money like that. We're going to make lots and lots of money by closing it off. I just think sometimes we had really much better times back in the day. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, it definitely started in the late Xbox 360 era. The greed started to come in.
Yeah.
It's funny to think that all it started was with a little bit of innocent horse armor, and look where we are.
Yeah, that's true. So Goldrin's saying here, look, I'm still a console guy. Animal Crossing New Horizons on Switch is the best video game of the 21st century. Yeah, I said it. What's your take on Animal Crossings? And would you say that there is a best video game of the 21st century, and you know what it is?
Well, Animal Crossing New Horizons came out at the perfect time, just before lockdown. It did,
Right.
and the perfect game for lockdown it was. Is probably the best Animal Crossing game and one of the best Switch games out there. Definitely do like it a lot. It's such a charming, peaceful game, and it's got that Nintendo charm to it as well. Best video game of the 21st century. It's probably up there, definitely up there as one of the most important ones, but I don't know what would be mine. Probably something like The Witcher 3 or Breath of the Wild, something like that. There's a lot of high
Yeah,
quality games.
I must admit, I'm a little bit like you. I think that was a bit hard on me to actually say to you what was the best video game of the 21st century, because just like films, and you know, both you and I are collectors and watch films and all that sort of stuff. I stay away from what's the top 10 horrors and what's the top 10 sci-fi ones, because what I tend to find is when my mind is thinking about it at the time somebody raises the question, I'm not thinking far back enough. You know, so somebody might mention top 10 horror, and Dracula wouldn't come into it, nor would Nosferatu, because you're talking the 20s and then the 30s and all that. That's to excuse the phone. It'll ring off in a moment. Pick it up. Thank you. So where was I going with this? Yeah, so people with sort of like memories will only look back so far and then say that, right? And I need time to actually think about it, and then usually what I do is I'll choose 2 from the 30s, 2 from the 50s, whatever it is, and then come to my conclusion saying this. And I think that's very, very difficult to do with gaming. Just as many genres, just as many different machines. Some people would turn around therefore and say, based on sales alone, FIFA should be there. And I'd be going, no. You know, in my mind, that's an abortionate thing to actually turn around and say, how dare you, FIFA, bloody hell. And I could equally put things like Valheim in, and V Rising, and you know, Planet Crafter, and all sorts of stuff that are taking Steam by storm at the moment. You know, and what do you think of early access?
Early access, I've never tried it. I know, because I don't normally do PC, but yeah, I think it's a good idea, and it's cool to see a game like in its initial development stage and how it grows to become the final product. I know Hades 2 is supposed to be doing very well in early access.
Yeah. I think the bad side about early access is that, and I saw this on YouTube over the weekend, and I'll mention a few of these channels, you know, in the blog, is that there was one site that turned around and said early access games that have not seen an update in 6 years.
Yes.
It actually came up, and it was playing all of these games saying this game was coming along really well. No update in the last 6 years. Whoever wasted their money on this, basically, that's it. That's your product. You're never going to see the end product.
I know there was one called The Day Before quite recently that caused some controversy.
All right. Well, I don't know about that one. Day Before.
Yeah, it was an online shooting game that took a load of money and then just disappeared. It wasn't what it was advertised. A lot of controversy went onto that.
See, you'd hope that Steam and things like that would vet these things a little bit more. I'm not saying that that's an everyday occurrence, but I'm not saying either that it's not something that I haven't heard happen before. Heard it in the console market with the Sinclair Vega. You know, that was an awful abortionate Kickstarter to try and bring the Sinclair back to modern audiences as a handheld and all sorts of stuff. So brilliant. Nice to get your insights on that. LFC Gamer and Vlogs. Years ago, you could tell a Nintendo and a Sega game apart. Nowadays, it's hard to differentiate a PS5 and a Series X from a graphical point of view.
It is. Definitely is.
Yeah.
It just feels like PlayStation 5 and Xbox are pretty much two of the same. It's just whether the exclusives or the console design itself that you care about. With Nintendo, they just do their own thing. And to be honest, Sega feels like it's nearly owned by Nintendo because most of the Sega games come to Nintendo.
Yeah.
They do. I do think with Xbox, I think they're now thinking that they're treating themselves more like a media brand, and I think they're going to bring everything to all consoles now. They may even stop doing consoles.
Yeah, possibly. I remember when that Xbox came out, it was so out the blue. It was like, wow, Microsoft have stepped into the console market. Wow. And then I remember there was somebody at work, because I was working for Lloyd's Bank at the time, went out and bought it day one, and he was raving about Halo. And I was going, right, okay, but is there anything other than Halo there? And he went, I don't need anything more than Halo. I'm going to be on this for months and months and months. And it seemed that Microsoft were on the ball and brought out a splattering of games enough to hold the interest. And there you are. They had a foothold. Amazing, really, when you think that far back.
And now they've just brought loads of companies up to have an impressive library of IP.
Yeah, that's very true. Yes, I mean, I also agree with that. There's not much of a difference between a PS5 and a Series X. I think that the way consoles are going is not the way that I want it to go, which is pure digital. I always would want a digital physical drive or some USB way of loading something up. I don't like the idea that you put in the disc and it then has to download 150 bloody gig of stuff to actually get it to start. And
the new Call of Duty has only 5 megabytes of data on the disc. You download 250 gigabytes.
It really is taking the piss. It's like, why go to that, put in the disc in the box if you've got a DVD or a Blu-ray disc that can hold 60 gig and you filled it with 5. I mean, what's the point in that? Christ. Yeah, crazy times. LFC says game. God of the Stardust. Nintendo gets exclusivity with their own games. That's stating the obvious, but they make banger games. I would say that their quality control is pretty good with their own games. I have to say that. They've got the creme de la creme of talent. Working on Mario and Zeldas and things. So
you can always know when you buy a Nintendo IP game, you ain't gonna need a day one patch.
Yeah, that's very true as well. Yeah, agreed. Steve's Gaming. I bought a PS5 at release, but sold it a couple of years later. I think the latest generation of consoles is quite disappointing. PS5 and Series X/S. Yes, I'm going to say exactly the same. I've got my PS5 over there. I'd have loved to have been able to have used it more than I did. I got it at the time of release, just during, the pandemic. But work got in the way, and it never sort of bit me to keep buying stuff. Spider-Man came along. That started the ball rolling. But the problem I've got, being an old fossil, is that I'll get into a game, play it that weekend. I'll have to then do work, and then when I get to the following weekend, I've forgotten what the bloody controls are, where I was, and what I was doing. And I just find it then really frustrating for me to try and spend an hour going, oh, I know where I'm at now, and then continuing. So I tend to find that I've done 25% of the game and then never go back to it. Now, that's probably an age group that does that. Has that happened to you where you put in something and a week's gone by and then when you come back, you wanted to play on it again? Have you had trouble getting back into it or?
Oh, definitely. I'll play a game and then something else will come out big at the same time. I'll play that, and then when I've done that, I'll want to give that a rest. I'll go to a different game and I'll be like, now where was I?
Yeah.
There's the time. There's the thing. But I do think definitely the PS5, Xbox Series era is definitely a disappointment. The PS5, I think it's a great console. I think there's a lot of untapped potential there, but nobody's really done anything with it. Everything still comes out on the PS4, and it does feel like a glorified PS4 Pro.
Yeah, I'd say that. A lot of people talked about the design of it. Did you think it was a thing of beauty? Did you go, this is weird, or anything like?
It seems it's very space age. It is the whole. I've got the PlayStation headphones on now, the black and white suits, but it's just its design isn't really compact, is it? Really, if you've got a small unit, it's going to either stand up on the side or be put on the floor. It's not like a Switch or an Xbox where you could easily fit it in, but it does allow for more air to get out, so it doesn't get as hot as the PlayStation 4 did.
They called it the surfboard, didn't they, when it first came out? It was also like all these fins. They called it fins. I must admit, I didn't think it was ugly. I didn't think it was a thing of beauty. I just thought to myself, that looks huge.
Yeah.
It looks incredibly big.
It's heavy, very heavy.
Yeah. I must admit, you know. So carry on. Sorry, I was just saying.
Sorry.
It is heavy. It's bloody heavy, yeah.
What I was going to say, I think another thing is with PlayStation itself, they're having big changes up the top. The manager who was there before, who was running it, was then, before he was leaving, focusing on live service games. New recent Concord game come out. It's failing left, right, and centre. And they did The Last of Us multiplayer that got canned. We haven't seen a new Naughty Dog game in nearly 5 years.
Yeah.
It's like, what the heck is going on? They're doing all these remasters of PS4 games. Yeah, it's nice, but not 70 quid. Until Dawn was a great game, and it's nice to see it's getting a remake, but 70 quid? I might just keep with the PS4 version. It's just an odd decision. They need to start focusing on... I know development of games have cost a lot more. They still keep doing those big games, but do smaller games like Concrete Genie or this new Astrobot. Do a couple of them a year and a big game every other year. And
I like Astrobot. I thought that was a really good pack-in game as well. When you're
new one's coming out next week, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I do. It's got a weird charm to that game.
It feels like a Nintendo game.
Yeah, I was like, it's got all that sort of like minion little voices, you know, where little squeaky noises, and then all the pulling and all this sort of stuff. I thought it's all quite nice. And then they do speed runs. I thought the speed runs were quite interesting on when I was looking at them on YouTube. When I really was into that game, because I actually finished that game. Well, who didn't? It was the pack-in game.
It was a free game, and it was probably the best game that utilized the new controller.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the controller. I would say that's probably where I think most of the technology and thought went into it. Would you agree with the PS5? Because that controller's lovely. It's a lovely controller.
I do like how the buttons would stop if you shoot and if you've run out of ammo or something. It's quite good. It is.
Yeah, the feedback, the haptic feedback. Yeah, I must admit, I do think that just has the edge over the Xbox. The Xbox, in comparison with their machine that came out, very minimalistic, a cube, very little color. When you start contrast the two machines, do you think the PS5 had an edge in its looks and that was part of the reason why people were buying more PS5s than Xboxes, or do you think it didn't really matter what it looked like?
It could be a octagon shape, whatever. It would still sell well. PlayStation, I think with Xbox, they've just like a lot of exclusives. Their exclusives have like really declined over the years, and whilst there's always been loads of games coming forward, they're still coming. Yeah. We haven't seen the fruits of these acquisitions yet. With PlayStation, I think at the end of the PS3 era, like when Uncharted and Last of Us come out, they hit the ground running with that. And whilst the PlayStation 4 had a couple of slow years, once 2015 come along, it was non-stop with exclusives, and that brought a lot of goodwill. It did.
Yeah.
And I do wonder when we have the next generation, I do wonder if people will be a little bit slower to adopt to new consoles, because apparently, according to PlayStation, pretty much 60% of PSN users still use a PS4.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about the Xbox, though, the Xbox X, is that as minimalistic as it actually is, every time I've seen a deconstruction video of it, to get to cleaning, because cleaning is something that I want to talk to you about as well, just before we finish talking about games. It's a lot of people are scared by, first of all, of deconstructing a machine. But if you actually take the Xbox apart, it's a complex procedure, but it seems more simplistic than the the PS5. I mean, the PS5 is slide this panel off, take this off, move this wire out, unscrew this, take this panel off, blah 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 blah. With the Xbox, it's got the fan at the top, the power at the bottom, in the center is basically the chunks, and it's in 3 parts, exactly like that. It's almost like buying a PC tower, you know. And so therefore, from my point of view, it's a no-brainer on which one is easier to work on.
That's another thing, is like I have seen deconstructions of both of them, and I do agree the Xbox is much more easier. It is a daunting task to do it. I know.
Yeah.
I had an original PS4, and after 2 or 3 years, the disk drive went.
Yeah.
So I had to take it apart and see what was going on with it, and like you couldn't do nothing for the disk drive. But it was like once you took everything apart, it was like, oh, make sure you put it all back together the same way. It's very scary. It is, to be fair. Kind of just makes you want to buy 1 or 2 systems as a backup.
Yeah. The other thing that's really weird to think about as well is that I think sometimes half of these things are myths as well. Like the Xbox X came out, the PS5 came out. When they dismantled it, they found under the hood of the PS5 it had liquid metal as thermal paste. The Xbox just had thermal paste. And everybody was going, why is it liquid metal on the PS5? Is it because this thing is super hot and it needs to actually have this conductive stuff? Isn't this silver paste more expensive than thermal paste? And even now, you know, people are just thinking to themselves, what it was the reason for having silver, you know, like paste, other than to up the cost of it all. I must admit, I do think that there was no need for it. You could have put thermal paste on that thing.
I do think a lot of the problem, another reason why these systems aren't getting as many users is because of the price of them. Very expensive. Like the PlayStation VR 2, 550 quid more expensive than this. No point.
Wow. And then until recently, where the PC adapters come out, Sony, the people were complaining by saying Sony have just given up with VR. I don't know. They only took them about 6 months before they gave in and said nothing really for this.
They even said themselves. They said like we probably ain't going to do another VR, and the sales are probably, they've only done 1 million or 2, which is dreadful, really. But they have reduced them quite recently to like 350 quid, and I've heard numbers have shifted up quite high, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, the PC adapter, I think, is probably going to booster it a little bit. When it comes to VR, I'm quite pro VR. Only because I like watching my 3D films now with my VR headset on, because I don't want to go upstairs to my old you know, plasma 3D screen. I also think that it's the future of watch-alongs. What is quite fun on YouTube at the moment is some of our friends do this as well, don't they? They do watch-alongs. Tell everybody there's going to be a film. You can watch it at the same time as them, and so forth. But with watch-alongs in VR, you could actually get a link, go to the actual place where it is. You can be sitting next to these people and having a chat with them. I think that's a fantastic little feature, really.
So some of the VR technology looks amazing. Like what the Apple are doing with that £3,000 looks insane. The money is insane, but it's cool. And
well, I'm glad that Apple have bolstered the money on it, because all that can do is make it cheaper for other third-party developers to clone that, and then that'll then become the norm, and therefore that, you know, all those people that were early adapters of that Apple device, thanks very much for buying it, you know, because I'm now going to get that in my next Meta 4 or something, and it's going to cost me far less, and it will be adopted as well, because it'll just be the norm. I am pleased Apple were the people that do, because they're a cash cow. They deserve to have a little bit of money taken away from them. Move the technology forward without us having to do that for them.
That's true.
So anyway, the View with Drew. Hey everyone, what's up? Hey, View with Drew. Nice to meet you. Glad to see you here. Cauldron of Stardust, LFC Gamer and Vlogs. I still think Switch games look and feel different from PS5 or Xbox Series XS games. I think the gap between non-Nintendo console and PC gaming is what shrunk recently. Yeah.
There isn't the jump in graphical fidelity between generations as there used to be, I don't think.
Definitely slowed down. I think there's always been a slight difference that you could always see. And I think there's always been a slight performance difference between what you can always see. And I think the PC has always been the... Oh, bloody hell. All right, my mum's not very well, so we're waiting for the doctor to call. So,
oh no, I hope she gets better soon.
There we go. That's probably that. So, what was I saying? Yeah, the PC sort of like is the clone cousin. It's the black box that could do everything that the PS5 and the Xbox can do, but you have to install it. You have to then download a patch, and then you have to put in a controller and all of that sort of stuff. And usually you're going to have to run it from a Steam account and all of that sort of stuff. I think what's the word that my friends used to say? It's a lot of faff. Yeah. Where a console is just put a disc in, it's there, boom, there you are, nothing to think about, all there, done and dusted, play tested, maybe a patch because somebody has found a bug in the first 5 minutes that they never even thought of or something. So I will say that. I mean, I love PC gaming. I think it's the dark horse of gaming, really.
I do wonder whether more people will turn to PC gaming with the generations changing or not changing so much. They might just say, like, instead of paying all this money every few years, I just have a PC.
Yeah. Like I said, when Microsoft brought out a console, I thought it's just going to be a PC in a box, and it was. You actually open the thing up. It's got a south bridge, a north bridge, memory, a CPU, a graphics card. It really is a PC on a board. That's it. And therefore, you have to go to yourself, it must be the easiest thing then to emulate in the world. It's not. Actually, the Xbox was one of the hardest things to try and emulate because the differences on that board are quite significant, but you get what I mean. We thought it was just going to be a power PC, really. LFC also says most of the modern stuff doesn't grab my interest the same way the old school stuff does. So when you're looking back at your history and looking at those cartridges and you were saying, oh, I used to have great fun, GBA, all of that sort of stuff, does that statement that LFC there hold true to you as well? Some stuff just doesn't grab the interest in the same way? Or were you just a younger person then and you think that because that's a perception?
I do think like game development and like how the game play has definitely, whilst it has reached a high, there's also been a time where there's been like kind of laziness, kind of been lax. I mean, you could say like with Ubisoft games, you played them all. A lot of them follow that same open world style. So I think it really does depend on the game that you're talking about. I think more indie, you definitely do get a nice variety there, but I definitely understand with more modern AAA games, there is a sort of like, yeah, it's just the same thing over again. I know with the new Far Cry that came out a couple of years ago, I was like, well, this is the same one for the past 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. So thinking about that for a minute, is this still a thing? Back in the day, Nintendo was the cutesy thing and PlayStation was more hard-edged. And Xbox was possibly the same edge or maybe slightly more harder edge, and it actually had the network features. Is that still the same? Do you think Switch still has that? Oh, if you're buying that, you're going to be playing cutesy games. You're not going to be playing Evil Dead Rises or something, a game on a Switch because it's Nintendo and they're all into cutesy.
I think there's always a thing with Nintendo that it's always going to be synonymous to like bright, smiley, happy games. But definitely during the Switch era, they took a lot of risks and made a lot of deals to get more mature games on the system, and they've done well. I mean, it's a pretty big risk for them to pay for Bayonetta 2 and 3. You'd never think Bayonetta would be on a Nintendo system. And you could say Bayonetta is a Nintendo IP now because they've paid so much for all these games to produce. They're releasing a new game next week called The Murder Detective Club, and that's an 18 plus. Nintendo releasing an 18 plus game? Never heard of it. And apparently they're working on loads of other stuff for mature audiences. I mean, when they got Doom on the Switch, it was a huge success. So I think Nintendo, again, will definitely always go for their core audience, like with their stuff, but they will still, especially with success, cater for more audiences. I do think the Switch as a whole has got a great variety of games, something that would make, I think it may just be their best console yet in terms of games. And it really does surprise me when they release like PS4, PS5 games onto the system, like Witcher 3, Dying Light, these impossible ports run great.
Yeah, you'd think to yourself they're punching above their waistline, really. How can this handheld play that game? Which, to be quite honest, looks incredible when you put it on a huge screen. You know, I mean, we're talking volumatic lighting and all that sort of stuff. You know, so yeah, I totally agree.
Just excuse me, I'm just going to go and take this into the other room.
Oh yeah, certainly, it's not a problem. I can wait here, not a problem. Hope everybody is enjoying the chat so far. I'm really enjoying this. I'm getting an education, really. Always nice to get a perspective, especially from my mate Pete. We haven't talked about this sort of stuff for a long time, so it's really quite good. But by all means, by the way, if you want to talk about films, you can bring in filmy type questions. It doesn't have to be to do with gaming all the time. You know, there's plenty of stuff going on in the film world if you'd like to talk about it. Not a problem. So just wait for Pete to come back.
Well, I'm here. I can hear you. I'm just sitting down.
No, that's all right. I'm just explaining if anybody wants to talk some film stuff, they can. This has just been a really education for me, Pete.
It's been a really nice chat. I've really enjoyed it. It's great to talk about games for a change.
Yeah, that's what we talked about at the beginning. I said, I don't think anybody's done this with you, have they? For a long, or at least for a long time. So give you something different from this weekend as well. Which, by the way, thank you very much for a lovely stream last night. Found that really, really nice. That Terrence bloke was. I subscribed to him immediately. It was very insightful. The only thing I will say about it is that I as much as I don't really speak to all the others as much as I used to, they seem to not be able to get a word in edgeways, Ryan and Jamie. I'd have hoped that maybe somebody might have just said, "Oh, question for Jamie" or something, just to bring him back into the conversation.
Yeah, I think Jamie certainly enjoyed it. I think he just loves just being there. He always loves being a part of it.
He's a joy, isn't he? I mean, he was always there going Batman and all this. I always used to have a bit of fun with him and that, and it's a masterpiece. And I miss all that. He's been missed, really. You know what I mean? It's great to see him on the chat circuit again. So that's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, we'll move forward. NFC Gamer and Vlogs. I've never played the Switch, but it does intrigue me, especially the platformers available. Yeah, do you think it's still got a stigmatism of being a solely platform type game, or would you say that it's got a variety now to make it lose that moniker a bit?
It's got a huge variety for everybody, but its bread and butter is definitely platformers. If you want a platformer, it is the place to go. Pretty much all the best ones are on there. And like, if you're definitely more retro inclined, Switch is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's probably a bit easier as well to turn into a emulation station type thing.
Yeah, the original Switch, the OG one, when it came out, it could have been like jailbroken with just a paper clip. with just a paperclip.
Yeah, yeah. That's the PSP was like that, by the way. Just so that you know, there was a battery hack
Mm.
back in the day. I remember that. Cauldron of Stardust, I'm so happy to be here for Dell and Playtendoguy. Here with a whole lot of awesome people in chat. Good times. Love you all. Oh, thank you so
Oh,
much,
thank you
Cauldron.
so much, mate.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm immense fun with this. LFC says, wish I still had my Game Boy Advance, which I got for Christmas back in 2003. The 2 games that came with it were Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga and Pokemon Sapphire. Pokemon, an interesting one there. Probably one of their biggest IPs, but something that I can't get into. Have you been into Pokemon?
I was more into the cards and the anime before the actual games, but I love Pokemon. It is essentially very much their FIFA. You kind of played one, you played them all. Not a lot has changed from them, but to be honest, the gameplay was perfect. I do think, though, the most recent ones have suffered from the Switch's technical issues and also the rush to get them out. There
Yeah.
has. I remember Pokemon. I can't remember which one it was, but the recent one that they released a couple of years ago, it technically was a mess. It was unbelievable. It was the first Nintendo game in a long while that was pretty much broken at launch. It was,
Yeah.
but
Maybe
Pokemon.
I'm just scared of Pokemon. There's so many different games. I mean, there's Pokemon Red, Gold, Sapphire, Silver, bloody.
Some of the spin-offs are a lot of fun. They've done everything. They've even done little learning typing one with a USB keyboard typing how to spell the Pokemon.
Yeah, it's just I just went. It seemed very much every time I was watching it from a distance that all it was the battles from Final Fantasy, and so you had you'd walk along a little bit and then suddenly you've got to fight this other character and you'd basically then fight and then you take whatever it is from them, walk a little bit more, another event, fight this and I just went, well, this is Final Fantasy. And Heroes of Might and Magic and all the other games that I've ever played. So what makes Pokemon so bloody different then that everybody's going, oh, I've got to have a Pokemon game, bloody hell.
It's all the creatures, I think. Everybody loves the creatures. There's so many of them, but the thing is they're kind of losing the idea of what to make of them. I remember they had a microwave and a fridge as a Pokemon before and an ice cream cone.
When we play these games, it sounds so silly when we're talking in the English language about it. Say, oh, what are you playing? Oh, I've got to beat this fridge, Mum. Do you imagine that conversation? You're going, yeah, I've got to destroy this fridge because when I do that, I've got to go after the cooker. And then what? What's all that about? But I suppose you're quite right. It's the collector in us, isn't it? Got to catch them all. That's the slogan, wasn't it? Got to catch them all, Pokemon.
Look at Pokemon Go. That was a huge success, a cultural phenomenon when that came out.
Yeah, there was a phone game, wasn't there, where you had to go around finding bloody Pikachus or something, whatever it was, wasn't
Pokemon Go, it was huge, still is huge.
Bloody hell. And then it was like it was almost like a radar system, like, oh, I'm really close to another one like this. What's all bloody hell's all that about?
And Mario and Luigi is a great little RPG. It is. It's got a lot of human charm to it, and they remade that a couple of years ago, and that holds up a lot. It does. It's like a platforming RPG.
Yeah, I like the RPG, but I'll tell you what, and not a lot of people know this, is I really like Paper Mario.
Yes, Paper
Mario. The reason I like
good.
Paper Mario and Paper Zelda and all that is you can actually go against the wall and crawl along the wall and around and then pop yourself out and continue and all that. I love that idea that you've got to think about the environment as well as everything else, all because he's made of paper. It's like
I did pick up the 1,000-Year Door because they remade that earlier this year. I haven't played it yet, but I've heard immense things about it, saying how good it is.
Absolutely brilliant. So what else we got here? LFC Gamer and Vlogs. I played the heck out of Pokemon Sapphire. Did you play Pokemon Sapphire?
Yeah, probably the most play Pokemon game was Pokemon Heart Gold for me. It was a remake of Gold, but it also included a remake of Red or Blue, depending on what color you picked. So it was 2 games in one. I put about 300 hours in that.
And it's amazing how much money they go for as well, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, because it
Pokemon
come with
games.
like a little pedometer. It did. Oh, there was a whole thing. You could transfer Pokemon into this little LCD pedometer, walk
Right.
around, put it back into the game, and you get loads of points and that. It was quite a fun little idea.
Anything in it to actually sort of like elongate something and then never get to the end of it. Bloody hell. I wish I had a brain like theirs, and then I'd be rich. LFC Gamer and Vlogs. Hands down, my favorite GBA and Pokemon game ever. That was Sapphire. Pity I lost the cartridge, but I still have Mario and Luigi lying around somewhere.
Oh.
Cold Stardust. Same opinion on Pokemon Sapphire. One of my favorites on the GBA was Wario Land 4. Had some weird but wonderful music. Do you remember Wario Land 4?
Yeah, it started off as Super Mario Land for the Game Boy, and then because Wario was a villain in one of them, he became quite popular, so they gave him his own gaming series, and they have a lot of fun, they are. Basically, you go through the level, get what you want, and then run all the way out.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, it is. They did one for the Wii called the Shake Dimension, and it was done in such like an anime art style. It was a great game. It was. Unfortunately, they haven't really done a Wario Land for ages.
No.
They keep doing the WarioWare games, which are fun, but the land ones are always a lot of great time.
Yeah, I think the Nintendo Virtual Boy had a Wario Land.
Yeah, the Virtual Boy only had like about a handful
Yeah,
of
about
games,
20,
didn't it?
20 or so
It had
games. Yeah.
yeah,
But I believe that the Wario Land one that was on there was considered to be sort of like one of the top 5 games that you could have for that system.
yeah,
And well received, if I remember rightly.
yeah.
Yeah. Still, if you've got to have every single Wario game, it means that that's going to be a bit of a pisser for you, because you try finding a virtual Nintendo boy, you ain't
Yeah.
going to find one of them easily.
Such an odd idea for a console as well.
Well, VR, it was a buzzword, but really it's plex. It's like a multiplex 3D. Really, it's just 2 planes put over the top of each other.
It's a bit like the 3DS with how they did the 3D. It was more in depth instead of coming in your face.
Yeah, that's it. VR is supposed to be you look around and you can see absolutely everything behind you and everything. This was just 3D, really. And it was just 2 optical views merged together. Yeah. Nice idea. Glad that they tried to do something well in advance. Like I say, this is how we move forward with technology. So I'm glad it came out, but not glad that it failed like it did. I don't like failure,
like the Virtual Boy and the Wii U, they failed so other consoles could run.
Exactly. That's it. We learn from those mistakes. I'm so excited right now, like a kid. I'm having tons of fun. Dell rocks. Playtendoguy rocks. Folks here in chat rock. I cut my hair. I could have started doing head banging and make everybody throw up. Right. LFC Gamer and Vlogs. My favorite gangster film of all time is Godfather Part 2. Now, you mentioned what your one was. What's your thoughts on The Godfather? I think you've watched all 3 now, haven't you?
Yeah, I've seen the Godfather films years ago when I was a kid. I really did enjoy them. I know the third one that one isn't so good, but they've done a different cut to it now. I haven't seen the new cut to it, but yeah, they're definitely up there as one of the best gangster films of all time. It feels very much like an epic. It does.
Yeah. The 50th anniversary box was something that there was a lot of contention with, that wasn't there, because you could buy it as a sort of like standard thing, but there was the deluxe one with the art with the pictures inside it. But apparently the box was really poor, starts to fall to bits. You can't put it anywhere on your shelves. What's your opinion of some of these special boxes? Do you go for weird box designed ones with stuff in them and that?
Some of these box sets are very, very interesting in their designs, but
Yeah,
very impractical to put on the shelf or display. They look nice. I know the Godfather one, I know it well. It looks good, but again, like, where could you put it? And another thing is like time, wear and tear. It's a shame.
keep taking that disc out of that box, yeah, and see how long that box lasts.
One thing I don't like is like with collector's editions, I love it, but you've got to have the disc in a proper plastic case. Don't put it in like a DVD fold thing, cardboard
Yeah,
fold thing, because that again can easily wear and tear.
yeah. I suppose the only good side about that is that as we move towards 3D printing and it becomes really, really easy, it's quite easy to go, oh, I've snapped the inner flap of this 33 disc behemoth box that I've got here. Oh, it don't matter, look, because I can just basically print that little peg and there you are. There you are. But yeah, I take it exactly what you're saying. I'm not into eco packaging, but I'm also going out of favor of deluxe packaging where you just can't display it in your case. So what's the point? It's
I
atrocious, really.
think the best ones are like the Arrow, the Second Sight,
Yeah.
slipcover hard box with the film, your booklet, and whatever. I think them are just like the perfect way to do it, because then you can have them displayed on the shelf, look very nice, lined up on the shelf, and also you can have them front facing if you want to show off the artwork. And some of the new artwork looks incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're overpriced, but I really do like those metal case ones, you know, like the Lord of the Rings and the
Oh yeah,
Hobbit.
with the
And then
silver ones.
there's a Mad Max one, and there's you know, Superman one. They've got molded places where the discs go in them with a tin round the outside. Those are really quite nice because it's just how the discs are separated that's really nice. But they are expensive. I mean, I must admit, buy them in a sale and you feel like you've got something special. Buy them brand new and you think, £100 for what?
I know they did the Harry Potter one, and the Harry Potter one's like 200 quid. It's like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, I bought that in a sale for £109.
Mm.
But it takes an absolute age to get to that. But I think it proves most categorically that they made so many of those thinking they were going to get 200 and something quid really fast, and they didn't sell. That's why they've earned that. That's why they've turned up in sales as much as they have. So let's see. We've got from Cauldron and Stardust here. I agree. Godfather was phenomenal. I actually like Godfather 2 a tiny bit more. I must admit, I like the story a bit more. The Godfather to me is still my favorite. I do like going back in time and the rooftops of New York and everything. That whole story was very good. The third one, I think that the problem is it looks so glossy. It looks so modern and new. It doesn't have that dirty feel look of the 20s and 30s, which you get with the first Godfather films. You really do feel like you're in the 50s, 60s, 30s, 20s. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like they put Vaseline over the lens to give it that oldish look.
That's true.
Steve's Gaming Dell not wearing a superhero t-shirt. I think this means the world is going to end. They will be back. Yeah, I must admit I wear most of those in my blogs, don't I? But yeah, just put a shirt on. I just thought, wow. And then we got Menagel. Wow, we all know Menagel.
Hey, Menagel.
Gentlemen, how are we all? Pete, look at that.
Menagel, how are you doing?
Steve's Gaming Dell in his Clark Kent outfit. Bloody hell, any more insults want to be thrown at me? Here we go. The Yamo. I like the missing in action films with Chuck Norris. What's your feelings on Chuck Norris and his films as a whole? Would you say class, entertaining, boring? What?
He's got his place in cinema history. He's very much like a Steven Seagal. His films aren't intentionally highbrow or anything, but you know what you're getting, and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He can carry a film. He's got enough personality. I do like his TV series, Walker Texas Ranger. He was
Ranger,
quite
yeah.
good in that. And he is in a new game that I picked up a while ago called Crime Boss Rocky City. And he plays the sheriff of that town. And oh my days, he just feels like he's sitting in a room reading the lines and he's not even bothered. The bit of dialogue is like, I'm going to take you to court. He's like, he still cannot even be bothered.
Dial in performance.
And you got all these other actors in here who are going way over the top, and then he's just given such a sedate performance, like he's reading shopping like a shopping list.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Would you say though that his most iconic performance though is always going to be the one against Bruce Lee? I mean, it is
Mm,
iconic, isn't it? I mean,
it
those
is.
two fighting. Whenever I think of Chuck Norris, I instantly think of that scene. I don't. It doesn't matter that there's Walker, Texas Ranger, and everything else out there.
Delta
That he's
Force
done.
as well. What a great
Yeah,
film that is.
yeah. It's just that's how I imagine Chuck Norris is just fighting Bruce Lee and being in
Mm,
a commando outfit. You know what I mean?
mm.
So just
And there was a video of him still in the gym 81, 82, and he still looks pretty good for his age.
he does. I must admit, he's bloody good, really. Well, when you consider how Stallone's aged a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah. Menage, apologies that I didn't catch your stream live yesterday. It's been a bit
Oh,
hectic and
you're
manic
right,
for me
mate.
recently, but I've been watching your stream. I'm over 2 hours in, but we'll finish watching the rest. 2 hours in, yeah, it's about 6 hours. That
Yeah,
that
it is.
mammoth event that was.
Well, after the stream, I was like, "Oh, it's like 5 hours," and we're like, "5 hours?" Yeah, it's gone so quickly as well. I saw the
Oh,
time it was like nearly 2 o'clock. I was like, "Wow."
yeah, I was there to nearly the end. But
Mm,
then again, that's because I know it was Bank Holiday Monday and there wasn't really too much on telly. And I'm a big supporter of yours, Pete, and all of that sort of stuff. I can't comment sometimes. There's,
mm,
there are guests where I just feel it would make it possibly uncomfortable for the guest. But I'll always be there supporting you. I hope you understand that.
I appreciate your support.
Like I say, we're all a big friend and community, and there's no badness amongst any of
Mm,
us. But obviously, things can happen in the background and all that misunderstandings and all that sort of stuff. So I look at it as being just a waiting game, and everything just reverts back. So anyway. LFC Gamer and Vlog. Some other great gangster films I enjoy are Goodfellas, Scarface, and Carlito's Way. Well, now
mm.
there's some proper history behind absolutely every single one of those. You've seen every single one of those, I know, Pete.
Yep.
If you were to put those in order, which one would be the bottom for you?
Carlito's Way would be at the bottom for me. I think Goodfellas
Yeah,
and Scarface very close there. I'd probably go Scarface probably for me as my favorite, but
yeah,
it's hard to choose between them two. Carlito's Way, I do really like it, but I think like compared to the other films that Pacino's done, like gangster films, it's like, yeah, those other ones are still better. Still very good film. Sean Penn in it is slimy as out, but it is a good film, and it's nice to see it got a 4K release by Arrow last year.
yeah. I will agree with this in your stream yesterday, and this is the reason why I thought Terrence was really brilliant on there. He said the problem I've got with Wolf on Wall Street, which is a Scorsese film, is that you never see the other side of the hurt that these characters have done. You
Mm,
know, there they are, full on pelt, drugs, and all this, and there's a wake of destruction behind them, and you don't see any of that. But then I started to think of Scorsese films as a whole, and I thought to myself, virtually every Scorsese film's a bit actually like that.
yeah,
All of these
yeah.
murders that go on in Goodfellas, the people that are trying to cheat the gamble halls in Casino, you see the life of De Niro or Pesky or whatever it is in these films, and don't divert off of their story to see the
Mm.
weight of the destruction that they've made.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, that is an interesting one. I think The Irishman does that. I'm not quite sure about Flowers.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, Flowers of the Killer Moon.
Yeah, I bought that Italian 4K of that
Mm.
as a steelbook. But then again, I'm a big Scorsese fan. But I will agree that sometimes makes Scorsese a bit two-dimensional, really, because he's not really showing anything other than the lead story. The character is moving the story forward, and it's always that path and no other path around it. You know, anything that's going on to the left or right of the story path of this character, you don't get to see.
That's true.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought that was a bloody good observation.
Mm.
It all came from your stream, Pete. There you are. It all came from your stream. Cauldron of Stardust, Dello. Well, LFC Gamer and V-Blogs. Shame I don't own Chelito's Way on any format, considering how much I love that movie. Yeah. Do you remember that film coming out on VHS, or have you only ever seen it on DVD onwards?
I actually only ever heard of it from about a couple of years ago, hearing it on a stream.
Right. Chelito's Way is one of those ones that me and my friend Martin, sadly, he died a couple of years ago. We watched it on VHS, and it came out in pan and scan. Have you heard of that term before? Pan and scan.
Yeah, heard of that before.
But the pan and scan was so bad that circles were ovals. Right? They basically zoomed in so much that a circle turned into an oval. So all the faces were elongated, you know, like horses. And when you saw it at the cinema, you were going blown away by this. Can't wait to see it at home. You got that one home. You rented it from Blockbusters. You put it in. You went, "What's this shit?" There's all this stuff that I remember that was going on in the background. Where's all that gone? You know, it was like that. This is where we really, really pushed for widescreen. Oh my god! And it took an absolute age before our tellies caught up and to have those. Just a little bit of history for you on Chelito's Way. It was an atrocious pan and scan transfer. I can tell you that now.
It's amazing that like you wouldn't imagine it now with like how films release on physical that they would be released like that.
Yeah, anamorphic Panavision lenses, all that sort of stuff. Brilliant. Villain is a good British gangster film. It has Richard Burton and Ian McShane in it. Yes, that's been shown on Legends just recently. Villain.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. You wouldn't believe how much of a gangster Richard Burton is, but at the end, you just see what a sort of a chicken he actually really was. He used his name as a frightener, you know. But I won't spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. But Villain, yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. The ending is a bit bittersweet. Because his character looks so small at the end, but all the way through this film, he's a big gangster type thing, you know, strong arm, very much like the Craze, you know, type presence.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm a big fan of Ian McShane as well. It's always great to see him in a film.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Ian McShane was brilliant in it. So was the copper as well that's in that film. I've forgotten what his name was. But anyway, I think you'd get great enjoyment if you can remember that one in the future for yourself, Pete. Villain. It's a very good film. The Yamo, I own Chelito's Way. It came in a box set with 3 other gangster movies: Gangs of New York, which is meh, Casino, and Pacino's Scarface. Your feelings on Gangs of New York, which is meh.
I remember seeing it quite a while ago. I didn't mind it. It's okay, but it's definitely not up there as some of the best gangster films of all time.
Yeah.
For me, quite a controversial take. I wasn't huge on Casino when I saw it last year. Compared to the other Scorsese gangster films, this is probably the weakest one for me. I didn't like the way it was like mostly told through monologues, and I just couldn't get on with it. I thought it was a bit too long as well. I did like it. There was some moments in it that were great, and some of the bits near the end were fantastic. Cole, what's his name from Videodromes? James Woods. He was
James
great in
Woods,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, he was a real slime ball in it, and the cast was great. But compared to other Scorsese films, yeah, it's not up there for me. But I do like it, but don't love it as much as others do.
Yeah. The thing about Gangs of New York for me, it was yet another film that seems to have a lot of Irish in it.
Mm,
Um, it is in New York. There would have been a big Irish presence in it, and it was following the character of DiCaprio, wasn't it? Where he was a child and then came back and wanted
mm,
to avenge, wasn't it? That's pretty much what
yeah.
Gangs of New York is. And I think it lost its way a little bit, probably because I was in awe of all the different guest stars that I was eyeballing.
Mm.
Oh, bloody hell, now it's got Brentmore in it now, and bloody hell, look, there's DiCaprio, and bloody hell, now we've got this guy coming in, and I'm going, I've lost track now of what the story's about because I've been eyeballing all the stats that are in it. I think it takes multiple watches. I would say that it's low down in my list.
Mm.
Meh, yeah, possibly a little bit harsh. Say meh, but that's just me. I mean, I always think that Scorsese adds a little bit of flair to everything that you actually have, but just like any director, that you can have a poor day and a good day.
There's always a bad day in the office.
Yeah, that's what I would say about that. Nigel, lovely to see you, Delboy and Pete. Ha ha. Same to you. Good evening, everyone, from Gary North. Lovely to see you here, Gary North. It's weird that Nintendo consoles used to come out here in the UK like a year or two after coming out in Japan and the US. Yeah, back in the day when the PC Engine came out. Bloody hell. We were all expecting that was going to get a release. It never happened. Everybody was buying from British suppliers of Japanese stock. You had to actually get it from a specific supplier at the back of a magazine. And then you did to get the games. It took months to actually get them imported for you to actually have them. And that happened for the Nintendo 64 as well. I remember that the Nintendo 64 with Super Mario 64 on display in Hamleys for a good 3 months before the console was even released.
Wow.
You went in there, you played it, and pretty much I'm not surprised that Mario 64 has got its iconic status, because if you think about it, how many times could you go to Hamleys to play that game? Just when you were passing by London, it was,
Yeah.
you know, it would have been, I can't wait to get this.
I'm pretty certain the Nintendo 64, like in the UK, only launched with like 2 or 3 games as well.
Yeah, it was. It was about 2 or 3 games. There wasn't that many. I mean, I must admit, Mario 64 was the one that came with mine.
It was Pilot Wings, and I think it might have been a Star Wars game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, or that might have been GameCube.
Mm.
That was Star Wars Battle Squadron with Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah.
And something else. But yeah, you're actually quite right. It could have been a Star Wars game. Yeah, it probably was. Yeah, I think your memory is quite good on that one. LFC Gamer and Vlogs. The NES came out in 1987 in Britain, a whole 2 years after the Americans. That's quite true.
I know. A lot of games come out like 6 months to a year. I know with Pokemon games, it was like a year. And it was such a huge thing when they finally got, like about 5, 6 years ago, Pokemon games coming out day and date worldwide. It's hard to imagine like waiting years now for a console. It's like worldwide now.
Yeah.
And it's good that that's all sorted out. It's all to do with shippings and customs, but
Well, I think it's Nintendo as well, not having a European division for such a long period of time. They wanted to conquer the Americas. It was a North American or bust. Then you had to find a distributor for Europe.
it's all in Germany here, I'm pretty certain, for Europe.
Yeah.
They got a main headquarters in Germany. I think they may have one in France now as well. Because when you order from like Club Nintendo to get like the rewards, it always comes from Germany or France.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember getting my Zelda CD or something, and it came from there.
I remember getting enough Club Nintendo points, had them for ages, but because never had the internet till like 2008, so I had all these coins I had scratched off, and I had enough automatically to get the most expensive item, a gold Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess statue that was like
All right.
15,000 points. It had Link on Epona, all in gold. Huge statue it was. And that come by a big old courier that did. It was really heavy and still is.
Yeah. What do you think the Amico stuff elongates or adds flexibility to Nintendo's gaming structure? Because those little statues and you that have got a base and you scan them and
Oh, what amiibos? Yeah.
yeah, amiibos. That's it. I've called it Amico. Amiibos. Yeah, that's what
I
I meant.
think that they are the only toys to life that are still going because people essentially treat them just like pop vinyls. They're just little statues. They are.
Yeah,
They don't use them for what they are supposed to be used for, to put in games to get little bonuses. I don't. They're just lovely little statues, well-produced statues of iconic gaming characters for a not bad little budget compared to you could buy a big one for a few £100. These
yeah,
little ones go a long way.
yeah. No, I didn't think that they were priced too bad. It's just that it always used to amuse me that a game would come out, and instantly that the game came out, there was 15 of these little statues that you could buy. And one of
I've,
them would have been incredibly hard for you to actually even find. And
I've got about 100 or 200 of them.
bloody hell.
I remember when they first come out, there was always three of them that were really hard. When they come out with Smash Brothers for the Wii U, there was Villager from Animal Crossing that was super hard to get, and the Wii Fit Trainer, you couldn't find it anywhere. People were selling it for stupid money. So was CX, and I found one in Tesco of all places.
Just in another shelf that nobody probably even buggered know about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I must admit, I bought a couple of them. I think the first one I got was because I bought Mario Maker.
Yeah, you get an 8-bit Mario. I've
Yeah.
got a huge Yoshi cuddly toy amiibo they did. They even did a Diablo one as well.
Oh, a Diablo one. That's interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't made by Nintendo. It was produced by Blizzard, and it's like
Blizzard,
a
yeah.
little loot goblin, and it's a really cool little figure. Also, other companies did it for like Shovel Knight as well.
Yeah. Now there's a company that's flushed its bloody reputation down the toilet is Blizzard. Bloody hell. Blizzard used to be to me a stark sign of quality. I mean, I loved StarCraft, I loved Diablo. I wasn't a World of Warcraft, fan as such, but I did recognize that they'd got a product that was getting them lots and lots of money. And then they threw it all down the toilet with this Diablo going as a mobile phone.
Yeah, that got hordes of hate. I remember when they announced it, people booed. I haven't played Diablo 4. I don't know what it's like. Whether it's
I've got
good.
it. Yeah, Diablo 4. I bought it in a sale. I missed, but I mean, this is what I was talking about when Blizzard first had that brand of quality. You used to buy what they call these chests.
Mm.
So you bought this huge bloody box and it had a chest, and you opened it up, and inside it you'd have the game and the making of and an art book and all of this, a USB pen with the previous title that you could actually install and play StarCraft 1, when you got StarCraft 2. And then they brought the expansions out, and they'd all come in these chests. Diablo looked incredible. The player guide that came out was a hardback book. It looked like the Book of the Bloody Dead and all that sort of stuff. It looked absolutely
What
amazing.
killed them was Activision buying them.
Yeah, that's it, pretty much. And then
And
down the Kermit goes the reputation, and down
yeah,
the Kermit goes anybody that wants to buy anything to do with it.
it's like Overwatch that come out. That's quite a fun online shooter. It's creative, and then they said Overwatch 2 it's coming out, but it's going free to play. So that £50 version I got on disc is now just a coaster. It is,
Yeah.
and Overwatch 2 is exactly the same game. It is, and they were supposed to make like story content for it and all that. Oh, well, that's that. The only good thing about it is all the characters, all the stages, and all that are free. You only pay for cosmetics, which I don't really care much about.
Yeah.
But after playing Overwatch 2 for a couple of times, I'm like, I've played it already a few years ago. I've had my fill of it.
Yeah. But This is the other thing that amuses me when you've got something like Blizzard and Activision and all of that involved, is that you've just come out with the most common sense that anybody's got, and yet somebody up there that's getting something like 100,000 as a wage a year said that this was a good idea, and everybody at that table went, "Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll go down that route."
The thing is,
why aren't you? Why aren't you on that board? Is what I'm trying to get at. You know, it's like these people have been to university, got all these exams, and then got into that board.
The thing is, none of them are gamers, and none of them really know. They're just corporate heads in some places who just managed to get it, and all they're thinking about is the upper margin. Now, Activision had a great run from 2017 to about 2020, 2021 with all these remakes and reimaginings. Crash Bandicoot, Crash Racing, Spyro, Tony Hawk, and even Crash 4. They bought a lot of goodwill for that, and they just said, oh, because they're not live service games, we ain't going to make no more. Tony Hawk Pro Skater Remake, I bought it 3 times, PS4, PS5, and Switch.
Yeah, I bought that skateboard edition, you know, where the skateboard came with a skateboard. It was just called Skate, I think.
Wow. And it's the best selling Tony Hawk game, period. And they said, oh, well, it didn't sell enough. They had a sequel all ready for 3 and 4, nearly ready to ship, and they said, cancel it.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Activision really was a pedigree back in the 8-bit days, you know, with me, Commodore 64 and all of that sort of stuff. I tell you what, the stuff was second to none. And then when they got the Marvel line and they started, you know, bringing Spider-Man and stuff out on that, that was good.
It'll be interesting to see how they go now. Now they're under Microsoft.
Yeah, let's hope it. You know, there's some restoration. That's what you want, but I have my doubts, to be quite honest, Pete. I really don't see it really.
The biggest issue going on now is acquisitions. There's a place called the Embracer Group buying everything up, spending money like it's water, stuff flopping and blowing up in their faces, and then they're letting off too many people. Loads of studios closing down in the past years. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I totally agree. Cauldron's just said here that the Wii U was one that even I, a Nintendo console lover, skipped over. The Wii U, I bought it in a sale. It wasn't a day one purchase for me. I remember that a bank holiday came along. Somebody was putting coupons in the paper saying, look, if you went to Toys R Us in such and such a place, you could get this at 50% off or whatever it was. And, you know, you had to really phone the bloody store up and make sure they put it by for you, because by the time I traveled there, usually it was sold out or something.
Yeah,
you know?
I got it for Christmas the year it came out, but I did get it the day of release, and it was a sellout. It sold very well, but after that,
one of the strongest first day figures, wasn't it? I think for that particular.
Yeah, it had a good opening period, but that honeymoon period pretty much died off after Christmas. There wasn't nothing there. That was a shame.
Yeah, a little stumble block for Nintendo. The ammo. To be fair, the PS Vita was also somewhat of a failure, at least compared to the PSP. Yes. I'll tell you what the biggest problem I had with the PS Vita and the PSP was its bloody memory card system. How bloody expensive their memory cards were.
That put me off. That I remember that with the Vita, looked cool, but the SD cards or whatever specific cards you needed to buy were very expensive.
Yeah, you wanted a 64 gig memory card. It was as much as the bloody console was. And I'm going, you what?
I know.
It's got no extra technology in other than that you'd get with a micro SD card, and yet they want the console price for it.
I know PlayStation have expressed interest in going back into the handheld market, and I wonder whether they might do after the VR failure.
Yeah, there's a possibility. Like I said, the Vita was a brilliant design, hampered with the same crap memory system that the PSP had. Just why they just didn't go with a standard SD, that would have kept that thing going for years. I love the idea that you could use the PS Vita in a racing game. You could use it as a reverse mirror. You hooked it up with a Gran Turismo game, and you could play Gran Turismo on your Vita, and it would act as your back mirror. You know, your
Couldn't you like transfer the Vita game onto the big screen or vice
yeah,
versa?
and all of that, and then it was all the touch stuff that was at the back, and
Yeah, the touch thing on the back was really cool. I remember trying one out when they come out. Also, I did thought the Vita was quite expensive, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, that's the thing. It was the expense and the memory system. That's all it was. But they reduced the price. But you reduced the price, but you didn't reduce the price of the memory. That was it. So at the end of the day, you could pick up the console at one point, I think, for about 110 quid. But if you wanted the most expensive SD card, it was still 199.99. It's like, well, I bought two Vitas for that.
I know with the 3DS when that came out, that was quite a slow one off the start. 200 odd quid, especially compared to the DS, is £100. But they saw the figures and they act swiftly. They did a price cut, a huge marketing campaign in the August of that year, and afterwards it just flew off. It did.
Yeah, I had the original silver DS. Brilliant it was. You know, it was a clamshell type design, silver tops and all that sort of stuff around. And then they made it more square with a, you know, like later on more small form factor. But I've still got it, my original.
Yeah, I've got more. I've got pretty much every single version. I've got about 5 or 6 3DSs and about 4 DSs.
The 3DS, I need the free. I want a large 3DS screen, but they're still quite pricey.
What, 3DS XL? Because they did quite a few of them, didn't they? They did the new 3DS XL with better memory as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to have an XL because I've only ever had the standard 3DS. Just
to be honest, with the XL, once you've used an XL, it's hard to go back to the smaller screen.
Yeah, but it's just that they're still quite pricey. The XL, I think, for even on the second-hand market, they're still virtually the same price as what they were brand new.
I know the 3DS ones are getting way more sought after now, and the prices are jumping up. Because I remember when I was getting some during the pandemic, the games building up the collection, you could get them quite cheap, but now the same games are going for like 10 times the price, like 20-30 quid.
Yeah. One of these days I will get one. Like I said, I always did buy a DS Lite and a DS, and like I said, I had a 3DS. It was a midnight blue one, gorgeous day one release. I bought it with Street Fighter 5. I think it came.
Yeah, Street Fighter 4, Ridge Racer,
Ridge Racer,
Wings.
And there was a submarine. There was a submarine type one as well.
Still Diver.
Yeah,
and it had a 3D lenticular cover as well.
Yeah, and I've still got those.
Yeah,
but I haven't got an XL screen. So there you go. Steve's Gaming says, I love my Wii and got a Wii U at launch, but soon sold it. The Fisher Price gamepad, that's what we would call it, Elite Pro. Yeah, Fisher was utter garbage. With the battery life of a 1970s digital watch.
Yeah, the biggest thing with that, my Wii U, its battery on the gamepad is gone. It's because like it always needed charging. I do think the gamepad had some pretty cool ideas. There was games like Batman Arkham City and Deus Ex Human Revolution that made playing on a gamepad really cool. It used it in some really cool ways. And I must admit, when I jumped to PlayStation, I found it quite hard to adjust to having to press a button to see the map.
There was a zombie game as well, wasn't
there? Zombie U, and that got ported to PS4. That is totally different on there. It's like it plays best and still is best on the Wii U.
Yeah. I remember Zombie U. I thought that was pretty good, and I thought that was a great system for it to play it on as well. It was brilliant. LFC says I had a Wii U, and apart from Super Mario Maker as well as Mario Kart 8, it was pretty rubbish. See, I sort of agree and disagree. It's just you have to give it a chance. There was a lot of stuff there, but the trouble is you there wasn't really a way for you to rent them, play them. And so therefore you only knew what you read in the magazines or what you were prepared to buy, and you wouldn't really veer off from Mario, would you? Because of the price of them. I think Pikmin works really well on a Wii U.
Pikmin definitely was way better on the Wii U than it was on the Switch. I think the Pikmin games are brilliant.
Yeah.
I think the Wii U had a good library for a console that was maybe 1 or 2 years old, but for a 5 to 6 year old console, it is pretty poor. It
Yeah.
was like, well, you were starving for games sometimes. I think like
Yeah.
the first year it weren't too bad, but 2014 onwards, it was pretty darn bad.
Yeah, I
There is
agree.
some great games there, some that are still locked to it, but pretty much 90% of them are on Switch now.
They're on Switch now, aren't they? Yeah, that's right. But I must admit, Pikmin was a highlight for me on the Wii U. I remember playing that a lot.
Yeah, there was one called The Wonderful 101. That was a lot of fun.
Uh, Mac Chats, lads, a bit of a long one, filthy beast. What's your opinion on Downey returning to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a completely different character and being paid 100 million plus extra expenses? I'll go over to you on that one, Pete. I mean, I can tell you what my opinion is of it if you want, but I think people would like to know your opinion on my side of the channel first.
It's an interesting one. It's a bold decision to bring somebody back, especially as a different character. It is. I mean, if they're going to bring back somebody, they got to bring him back. He is the face of Marvel in a way, but to make him Doctor Doom, I think it'll be quite good. I guess the proof will be in the pudding to see what it'll be like when it comes out. Um, I hope that they. Problem is though, we're 2 years away from it, and they haven't built up his character, unlike Thanos, which was built over subsequent films. They had the Kang
Yeah,
stuff, they axed that, but hopefully Marvel are on a better way now because they pretty much reshot Captain America for all again, haven't they?
yeah.
But they've got pretty much the Russo brothers and the writing team all back, so hopefully it'll mean it's good. It's a cool idea to take Earth's greatest hero and make him with the face of the world's greatest threat.
Yeah.
But to make Doom a big threat, they need to do something really ballsy to like, oh wow, he means business. He needs to, at the start of Doomsday, kill off somebody quite big. Maybe even kill off Pepper Potts or something to get the audience like, wow, he is heartless.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd pretty much agree with what you just said. To me, Doctor Doom is a beloved villain, really, because he's been the foil of the Fantastic Four for ever since I can remember. In fact, actually, I think he's in like the third issue onwards of Fantastic Four, and that's been going for since 1962. So to have the savior of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Iron Man 1, you know, that's where all the jumping point was, and have Tony Stark come back. I think what that sounds like desperation. I think everybody thought this is a desperate move by Marvel when they first saw it. From another perspective, though, it makes perfect sense. The multiverse is always supposed to be isn't the Doctor Doom that you think it is. This is a multi-system, you know, a multi-universe Doctor Doom. And therefore there is going to be a Doctor Doom that you're going to see as a foil for the Fantastic Four as long as these films take off, and it won't be Robert Downey Jr. This is sort of like a last hurrah type thing. In fact, he probably is looking at it as being, well, that's the house paid off. That's my car for the next 10 years, and everything else rolled into one. And he, you know, he can basically just turn around and go, I live off the interest of this for the next 10 years. So from his point of view, it's like no brainer. For fan service, it's a no brainer. From a speculative point of view, it's a bad move, you know, because it also means Marvel haven't learned their lesson and are going along convoluted storylines where each story interacts with each other, which means that they're going to be bringing 2 or 3 out a year, and they're all going to culminate in a big fuck off end game thing, which works the first time round, but hasn't worked any other time round. Yeah. So, you know, that's how I look at it. It's a gamble. I'm happy that you've got some class and a character that we can get our teeth into. But like you said, how are you going to get your teeth into a character that we've seen or heard nothing virtually of? It's a faceless, metal, green hooded person with illusions of grandeur. That's basically what he is.
All I hope is that once the final one is its Secret Wars come out,
Yeah.
end the multiverse, stop it.
Well, Doctor Doom in Secret Wars, let me think. He died at one point. He tried to steal the powers of Galactus, which he did, and then tried to take on the Beyonder, which is where Secret Wars comes from. Failed miserably. Got back straight down to the Beyonder's planet where all these battles were going on, and he basically sort of like sat back and cried for the remainder of the story. That was it, because he was given the powers of a god, and then basically was shown his ass. That was it.
Wow.
Anyway, Gary North, I remember back in the day we would get home from school and wait forever for games to load on the Commodore 64 tape deck. Yeah, I remember those days as well. They weren't, though, as long as nostalgia and my rose tinted glasses makes me think. I used to keep thinking they were 20 minutes long. They were only ever 20 minutes long in the very, very first year of the Commodore 64's life. Then they developed Nova Load and all of this. They loaded in about 4 minutes, which may seem like a long time, and it definitely does seem like a long time for an 8-year-old lad. But to be quite honest, next to nothing, really. 4 minutes.
Well, some games on the PS4 take like 4 or 5 minutes to load, like Red
Yeah.
Dead 2.
Bloody hell, it takes longer to, you just put a game in now and you've got to download a patch that's going to take you an hour and a half or something to download because all the servers are busy. Bloody hell. Right, NFC Gamer Vlogs. The best Nintendo system ever created, I reckon, was and still is the SNES. Oh, that's an interesting one. The SNES is my most fun one. I had the most fun with the SNES because I had the Magi system, which was a disk drive attached to the top of the device. So basically, I could back up all cartridges to a floppy disk, and that meant the Blockbusters that were renting them out, I was getting out 3 or 4 a week, and all I needed was a blank disc. So I suddenly ended up with a huge collection. And of course, SNES games were of such high quality that that there was very few duds. Cool World was a dud. Jesus Christ, the film was shit, and so was the game.
It was a cool era, especially the Sega Nintendo rivalry. Sega does what Nintendo don't. All that was like such a great period. And at the end of the day, gamers won with so many great games.
It's amazing that I think through my history of gaming, it's been an incredibly important thing for me to have the best sound over the best graphics. Weird that, because the VIC-20 had a great sound chip right for its time. 64 had a SID chip, which is basically a synthesizer that you could take home and put in, you can put up and plug into your TV. The Amiga had the Paula chip, which basically had digitized sound and split stereo. So the SNES, I remember when I was playing Mario World, and I remember going into the second level, which was the caves, and it all echoed and all of this sort of stuff. And it just sounded gorgeous. It was the best sounding thing I'd ever heard in my life.
Sound can go a long way with older games as well. It can really add to the atmosphere so much.
The Mega Drive was no slouch. It's just it sounded tinny compared. It's just this sounded like an orchestra. The other one sounded like a cheap Casio keyboard. You know what I mean? That's how I looked at it. And of course, the color palette was brilliant, and it had that mode 7 and all that. But yeah, that I remember the music and the sound effects and everything in Super Mario World just kept me going for months and months and months and months and months. It was brilliant.
And like stuff like Star Fox and Donkey Kong with their 3D like visuals was revolutionary.
Yeah, bloody hell, they had sort of like claymation, ray tracing type, rotoscoping graphics. I mean, brilliant, really. Rare were on top form on the SNES. I have to say that. Mark Chats, personally, I think it reeks of desperation, and paying him 100 million sets a very bad precedent. I think Marvel may have blown it when it comes to recruiting any of the other OG Avenger cast. Yeah, it is an opinion. It's one of those ones where they think it's a safe bet, and to be quite honest, it's raised an awful lot of people talking about it. Now, I would think that they spent more money on actually the directors, but I bet you any money they've not disclosed their figure. You think that Robert Downey Jr. has had 100 million, blah 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 blah, but I bet you any money that the Russo.
I think they said they're getting 80 million for both the films.
I bet you any money that it's also got a merchandise appeal to it. Plus,
oh yeah, it's got like a thing how much it does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So where Robert Downey Jr.'s might be actually a flat rate. The directors can probably go, oh yeah, but we want merchandise rights and all of this sort of stuff. And in the end, it turns out to be as lucrative as Jack Nicholson's Joker contract, which, by the way, is still paying dividends to him even now. So there you are. And he's been retired as an actor for the last 12 years.
That's his pension.
Mark Chats, if Downey's getting 100 million, we want XYZ. Their lineup may not be want, and the end tally may be in the billions by the time they wrap up. Thoughts? Exactly. It's what we just sort of like
I think with like Downey, he can ask for that, but the other actors like Chris Evans, I don't think so with him. I think he'd do it for a lot less. I mean, because of Oppenheimer and getting that Academy Award and the up and up of his career, he is a sought after name. Chris Evans, like, he was in Deadpool, so it proves that he can come back and probably won't cost so much.
Definitely. Yeah, totally agree with that. The ammo, Gary North, thank God for fast loaders. That's just what I just thought about. Yeah, thank God they were there, I must admit. I had a 1541 disk drive, and that was nearly as slow as the cassettes, to be honest. It was. It had a terrible chip inside the drive that basically knackered it for speed of access to the drive. It was a pretty atrocious drive, and the bloody thing cost as much as the computer and weighed twice as much.
Wow.
It was a brick. I mean, gee, you carried it around, and I'll tell you what, if you'd have carried that home back in the day, you'd have had Arnold Schwarzenegger arms, I tell you. It was ridiculous, that 1541 drive. Great piece of kit, but yeah. Steve's Gaming had a Switch since launch. The Nintendo Online shop is still as slow and bad as it was at launch. Try scrolling through the games. It's so slow, and that's what I've heard as well. I've got a Switch back there. I hardly ever go to the shop. But yeah, when I went to the shop the first time that I was in there, I was going, this is a bit weird. There's stuff along the left side, a bit in the middle. I'm clicking on this, and it takes me to another little bloody console end, which says, it was all over the shop.
That is the thing with the shop and the OS of it. That is one thing that needs to change with the next system. There's so many games on there now that it just cannot cope with it. There's a lot of shovelware, a lot of crap on there. It's probably as bad as Steam with like the junk that Nintendo allows on there. They even let one on there which was like a really cheap knockoff ripoff of The Last of Us that PlayStation actually sued Nintendo a bit for letting it on.
Yeah. Now, I must admit, it makes me wonder why they don't put a little bit more money. If they're trying to push networking and everything, why the hell they don't overhaul this stuff? I don't know. Really is a strange decision to me. Hey, it's Mike Z. Look, did you see that? Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Doing wonderfully. Nice to see you back doing your chats as well, Mike Z.
Yeah, great to see you back, Mike.
Have you thought about Pete? You said about doing regular regular chats a particular day, or are you playing it by ear?
Probably Saturday
It's
evenings.
a good day, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I thought myself Saturday was a good day because you've got the well-established ones. You were well established as being a Wednesday, weren't you? And I mean that worked and so forth. But since then, there's been so much. I mean, we've got Keith and Rock God, on the Friday, and you've got I think Ryan on Tuesday, possibly. I don't know anybody who goes and watches me per se, but I do my thing on Wednesday with Ian Hill, the Ramblings. Soon, sort of like builds up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Saturday does seem to be sort of like the 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 sweet spot day. When you actually mentioned it yourself on Saturday, I thought that's really good, and you had it set a little bit later, and I thought that's genius as well, because what did I used to do in my youth, in my Fridays and Saturdays? I used to go into town, get drunk, come back, and then I'd watch all that crap on Channel 4 and Channel 5, like Euro, whatever it was. And you'd still be on with your chat. There you are. I thought, yeah, that's absolute genius, to be quite honest. I wish you really well on it.
Oh, thank you.
I'm really looking forward to it. What I don't want to see happen to you, though, Pete, please take this with a pinch of salt, is I don't want to see you burn out again. Please, when it, have fun with it.
Yeah.
It felt like you didn't need to do it that day. I think everybody's behind you on this. I just think you do a very unique show, and that's why I'm really looking forward to it. It's very varied, very fair as well in regards to the chat that goes on.
Oh, thank you.
That's very important to me, that everybody gets a good go at it. You know what I mean? So nothing to say about all the others. They're all equally good, by the way. Go and see all these people. They're here to entertain us. I'm just saying that certain people can control things in different ways. That's all I've got to say on that. Cauldron of Stardust. Nintendo 64 was my favorite Nintendo console and favorite console ever. That could be biased because it's close to my heart. I bought it with my own money and gave me joy during my teen years. I think that the hardest, and I'll answer this one first, and then you can have a go, Pete. The hardest thing I had to get used to with the Nintendo 64 was the controller.
Yeah, the little circular thing in the middle,
the little nub and everything, and all this little yellow starry thing that was there. Once you sort of got it had this Z button. It was almost like a bloody difficult thing to do. It was a star, like a starfish or manta ray with a joy down here and a Z button at the top, and it didn't seem natural. I was sort of like holding it either like this or like this, and I just never managed to get it so that I was working like this. My natural hand design wanted to grab the ends of a controller, and this center thing annoyed me because I didn't want to hold it like that. I think though, you did get used to it, and then people called that controller genius. What's your thoughts, Nintendo 64? Brilliant console, flawed, what?
Oh, it's got some of the best 3D platforms of all time. It's got some of the best debuts of 3D ever. Zelda and Mario are probably the best, like 2D to 3D jump you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Again, very much like the Wii had a small selection of games, but the games here were game changers. GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Rare had an incredible output there. Pretty much hit after hit there. Whilst the third party support wasn't great, Nintendo did incredible stuff there with it and managed to push every little ounce of power out of the system, even though like Sony was going with the CD for more data and all that. The controller is definitely unique. It's basically the middle bit with the little circle is a nunchuck from the Wii. It is.
Yeah.
They pretty much cut that out and made it. But I've only ever played like Nintendo 64 games for emulation for like all the different like software that Nintendo put out. But the games still hold up very, very well. They do. Some of them are a little bit hokey with their control schemes, but you can remap stuff and you're away. It's great stuff. I know when they put GoldenEye on the Switch, I was like, oh, can't wait to try it. And it was like, oh, the controls are a bit rubbish. But once you remap the controls to a modern day system, it's a great shooter and it holds up very well.
Yeah, the legacy is probably going to be the games for the Nintendo 64. I think Nintendo did really, really well with a system that I don't think they understood themselves, because they went into partnership with Silicon Graphics, if I remember rightly, and they developed this central chip, which was partly Nintendo's design and mostly Silicon Graphics design, and they fell out with each other. Now, it may sound like a really good idea, because if you look at Silicon Graphics, they were doing things like graphics for TV, all the 3D modeling and all of that sort of stuff. The problem is that they limited its RAM and all of this sort of stuff. So if you want to put textures on something, they look blurry. They look low res. And the reason they look low res and blurry is because there wasn't enough RAM for it to go around the system. And then the cartridge didn't make that couldn't make that any different, because it still had to inject those textures into the RAM of the machine itself, which is why that little expansion box didn't make much sense. There was a little hub, there was a little case there that said expansion pack. I don't know anybody who ever bought one. I never actually saw one, but it made no difference whatsoever.
And also in Japan, didn't they do like a disk drive for it, like a 64DD it was called or something?
It sits on top with lovely legs and everything. I think it was Panasonic. I think it's actually got a Panasonic drive underneath it. It's absolutely gorgeous looking thing, but so expensive. And it didn't really aid the Nintendo much. There was, I think there was some disc stuff that you could, I think you could buy it from hotels. I think it was used in hotels or something. And then on that system, it didn't work.
There was some really interesting feats of stuff that they managed to get working on there, like Resident Evil 2.
Yeah. Like I said, you got a cartridge. You've got these people that have got a disc, and it's got 700 meg of space on this disc, because that's a CD. When DVDs, it's even more. It's 4.2 gig or whatever. To have 4.2 gig worth of chips in a cartridge cost a fortune. So they had to do cut downs and all of this, take away FMV, all of that sort of stuff, and have just the core of the game. But they got away with it. They got away with it for years until the next console came out. So I've got to turn around and say, you know what, Nintendo, you got yourself out of a loop there. I'll tell you that now. Amazing.
And they were playing catch up because the PlayStation released quite a bit earlier as well.
Yeah. But like I say, you have a killer game like Mario 64, Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and bang, that's all you need. Like I say, I think the legacy of the games will stand out more than the hardware ever will.
Yeah, definitely.
The Nintendo 64 was great, but I didn't like the controllers. Favorite gamepad ever was the SNES. Yeah, the SNES controller's not bad. They're considered now baby ones now, aren't they? With the 4 little buttons on the right-hand side, it looks like a bone.
Yeah, it does.
A bone on a dog's, like they're there, with the controllers on the left and the buttons on the right. But I'll tell you what, it weren't too bad. I'll tell you what, the Wii had a SNES type controller that you could buy. It looked just like it, but it had a couple of buttons at the top. And that's a fantastic controller to use now on your PC. I mean, it really is a nice little controller, that is.
Yeah, they are.
Genesis controller is close second. I like the Genesis controller. I found it a bit thick, a bit bulky, but hey, iconic. What can you say about it? I think the most iconic version of it is the 6-button one, is it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
With the auto fire, I think. Cauldron of Stardust, the Yamo, the Nintendo 64 controller was not good and was of poor quality. The thumbsticks are extremely susceptible to wear and tear damage. I do
the same now.
Yeah, I don't think they had too much return to center control problems. I think it was just if they went to the left, they stuck to the left. Couldn't get them, so you know what I mean. I don't think the actual control mechanism itself lost its elasticity, you know, to center itself. It's just for some unknown reason they'd stay to the left and wouldn't come back and crap like that. LFC Gamer and Vlogs. I did own a Nintendo 64 when I got into collecting, but the strange thing was I had more fun playing on my schoolmate's Nintendo 64 back in the early 2000s than I had owning one. You're not alone, I think, in that. I think a lot of people liked going around people's houses and playing on
That
different
was the multiplayer console of choice. That was made for GoldenEye and Mario Party. All
Conker's
those
Fernay,
games,
wasn't it? Conker's
yeah,
Fernay.
yeah, all these games were made to be played together 4-player, and that was the console to do it at the time.
Agreed. Totally with that. And I've seen the Nintendo 64 wasn't too bad, minus the lack of grip the analog stick had. Yeah, it was very smooth, wasn't it? It didn't have any sort of like traction at all. But yeah, man, by the Genesis controller, I specifically mean the 6-button controller, which is what I just said. Menagel, I'm really glad you're back, Pete. It's nice to have you back as you've been missed by the community, and the joy it brings me is just joy.
Oh, thanks ever so much.
Menagel, bless you. Cauldron of Stardust, Playtendoguy is thinking of Jetpack. That was the early rare game for Specky. Jet Set Willy was different. Yeah, it's quite true. So when we're talking about rare, it was called Ultimate Play the Game. Right? And they brought out Jetpack, Trans Am, PSST. And then, of course, you had all the Saber Wolves and Underworlds and Alienates and all of that sort of stuff. And then, of course, they changed their name to Rare a little bit later on when they started to do NES stuff. And the rest is history, because they came out with something called Solar Jetman on the NES. I remember right, a bit like Thrust. So, yeah, Rare was... Ultimate Play the Game has got one killer game that I love called Attic Attack.
Yeah,
and I love that game. And when you think that was 1983, I'm just going mental.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's a British company as well, isn't it?
It's indeed. Ashby Computer Graphics, ACG. So they're not too far away. Trying to think how far out of London Ashby is. Ashby de la Zoo. Not sure. I have to think about that. LFC. The first Nintendo 64 game I can remember playing was Wave Race. The music in Wave Race was great. It was Wave Race 64. I love that. And you could adjust the handling of your water ski. It was the water effects that I was going wow at with Wave Race 64. But it even had that iconic voice, Wave Race. And it had this Dolphin Park thing, and it used to go round in a loop, and I used to hear this electric guitar going, you know, and all this sort of stuff.
They did one for the GameCube as well, didn't they?
Yeah, there was they did F-Zero. The last one was for the GameCube, if I remember right. It was a F-Zero Extreme or something.
Yeah, made by Sega as well.
Yeah, they did. That's right. They did the Sega arcade machine of it. Yeah, they did. Amazing, really, seeing Nintendo characters in arcades. They did a Mario Kart in the arcade.
Yeah, that's really good, and that's done by Namco Bandai, because Pac-Man's a playable character.
Yeah, that's right. It's amazing, but when you look at it, it's like it looks really, really sharp, but actually, it's no sharper than if you played the GameCube version. It's not. It's just it's portrayed as being, because it's in an arcade with a huge off screen. You know what I mean? Have a look. Jet boat, I mean. Oh yeah, I understand. It's not a problem. Menagel, I'm such a massive Playtendo guy. There you go.
Thanks so much.
We all love to have our fans. I haven't got one fan. I've got a fan over here. It's turned on. It's getting some cold air to me eventually, but that's about it. Sometimes I whip it into shape. Danny Chick says, I love playing the Dizzy games. Now, you might not know what the Dizzy games are. Do you know what the Dizzy games are?
Yeah, a little Humpty Dumpty guy fellow.
Yeah, like an egg with legs.
Yeah.
Sort of jumping about like a Weeble Wobble thing. Did you? Did you like playing the Dizzy games, or have you not played them long enough?
I've
Really?
heard of them, I've seen them, but never played them. No.
No. You might get great enjoyment out of them, Pete. I've never turned around and say never, but it's just for me, it was like uphill bloody nightmare.
Mm.
I'd throw the joystick at the window by the time 5 minutes has gone past. That's how frustrated I got with those games. But now, Pete is the loveliest and nicest guy you can find on YouTube. I've got nothing but the nicest and kindest things to say about Pete. He's a great guy.
Oh, thanks ever so much.
He always brightens my days. Whenever I see his videos go up, to especially love tuning into the streams and having a conversation with him. Man, great, the YouTube channel he has. Yeah, brilliant. Like I say, I wouldn't have him on if I didn't think of what a genius YouTuber he is. There you are. How's that for gushing?
I'm all red now.
All this attention. You've gone all red. No, not really. I agree with Cauldron. I'm also in North America, and while there are channels from the region that focus on old computers, most of them focus primarily on coding and hardware rather than on gaming. Yeah, it's a splintered force on YouTube in regards to what you're going to watch. There are some that are long plays, some that are just this is how you get past this one little bit. There's ones that give you a history. There's ones that just want to talk about their reminiscing of that particular game. And some that just going to say, I'm going to put on any game that you guys mentioned, and then I'm going to play it for you while you mention it and have some fun. So varied. I'm not surprised that I'm not going to pay, the TV license is going out the bloody window and all that sort of stuff. What a load of shit on TV. I'd rather watch somebody play Manic Miner from 1983 than watch some of the shit that's on telly.
Nothing on TV anymore, especially on BBC. It's awful.
Well, we renewed our TV license because my mum wanted to watch the Olympics. That was it. And now she doesn't want the BBC anymore. But I said, well, we've paid for a year now. So, stuff that's what it was. Otherwise, we didn't pay last year because there was nothing that we wanted to watch. My mum wasn't watching EastEnders. Doctor Who was shit. And I could watch that anyway on the internet through other means. All that
BBC, the original subscription service.
Yeah, to be quite honest. It's just as simple as that, really. It's definitely going to change in the next 2 to 3 years. It's never going to survive like it is. They need to understand that we want now a BBC that's scrambled, and when you buy it, it unscrambles the image like we've seen for years and years and years, and then you can choose what you want to watch.
Yeah,
because I'm pretty sure there would still be a requirement for Strictly Come Dancing for a lot of people, but then after Strictly Come Dancing, nobody wants Antiques Roadshow and all the rest of the stuff, and so they just basically switch off and watch something else. It's just that's the way that that we've changed. The whole terrestrial tele's changed. Anyway, the NES had such incredible titles other than games Nintendo made. Capcom gave us Mega Man, DuckTales, and Bionic Commando. Bionic Commando, again, being an arcade game there for you, Pete. Mega Man was in the arcades, but was designed by an NES game. Platformy thing.
I remember I had played DuckTales before. That's a lot of fun. They did remake it about 10 years ago for the PS3. And Bionic Commando, they did do a whole reboot for that. Big budget
3D
one. Yeah, back in the PS3 days. And I don't think that set the world alight, but it was
I had it on the Xbox 360, and it was almost like you had a mechanical claw that it was all in 3D, and you were sort of like doing monkey swings across things.
I think the best publisher at the moment is Capcom. They have been hit after hit since Resident Evil 7. They have not missed a beat. They've been incredible, their output.
Yeah, everybody knows what my favorite arcade game is, and that's Ghosts and Goblins.
Oh,
and that whole franchise, Ghosts and Goblins, all of those, love them. Arthur Pendragon, going through graveyards, that's all I need with a bloody great big lance, and I'm okay on my desert island for the next 5 years. That game's so rock hard, I'd never get to the end of it. I mean, and when you get to the end, it turns around and says you've got to do it all again. It's not even completed. That's halfway through. If you get to the end and you kill Dracula, you have to go all the way back to the beginning and do it again. Bloody hell, Capcom, you bastards. Anyway, LFC Gamer and Vlogs, Konami with Castlevania, Salamander, or Life Force as it's known in America, and Jackal, for example. Yeah, Jackal. I'm not a big fan of Jackal. Castlevania, I am. Salamander, to an extent, I am, but it's got that same power-up system that really annoys me, that if you get powered up and then you die, you suddenly find that you got no bloody weapons and you're stuck in the middle of the level with no chance of getting through to the end.
Yeah, also missing Contra as well. Contra's great.
Yeah, Contra 3 and all of those sort of things. And I played that, which would now Contra is 3 is one of those ones in contention, because there's people that were on the SNES side and people on the the Mega Drive or Genesis side, and they were saying which one was the best, because one had suffered slowdown that had mode 7, and the other one was fast, but the music was pretty pants and it didn't have the same color palette. So do you remember, have you played both versions, Pete? Or
Fortunately not, no.
Oh, okay, not a problem. I've just told you all of that then, and you can go away and have a little thought about that if you care to. Correct about Nintendo announcing their break with Sony in 1991 via announcing a partnership with Philips, except it wasn't E3 because they didn't exist yet. It would have been the CES show, the Computer Electronics show. Negligible, minor slip of the tongue. I do that all the time. I know exactly what you meant. I'll let him go on that, Cauldron. All right, matey. Steve's game. Sometimes I spent more time deciding what to play than actually playing the games. That's exactly what I said to you earlier, isn't it? I said, I can't see the wood for the trees. I don't know what to play. Christ. Then by the time I figured it out, it's time to go to bed. Jesus. LFC Gamer and Vlogs. That's also me, Steve. Half the time I say bugger it and watch some YouTube instead.
Very true.
Yeah. In my humble opinion, in a few years, there will be no physical release games. Everything will be digital. I don't want it like that, but still, yeah. I mean, we're heading that way. I see it. That's what the industry wants, and that's probably what the industry is going to get. But I still hope that there is something like a USB stick or something that.
I think Nintendo will still be doing physical games for way, because they always take ages to catch with the trends.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And remember, I'm getting older and older, and by the time they actually get to pure digital, I'll probably be 6 foot under anyway, worm food. So I'll be all right. It's the next generation that needs to worry about it. So Cauldron of Stardust. In fact, they're faltering with Sony and then with Philips was one of the reasons Nintendo just said screw CDs. We're sticking with cartridges when making Nintendo 64, despite cartridges being such an old tech. Yeah, it's exactly right. Sort of, we talked about that, and then the Silicon, obviously, graphics workstation system that they built into it. Steve's Gaming. I never paid Nintendo for online. No, nor have I. Or Sony for PS Plus. No, I've done that. I find paying to back up their saves just despicable. More so since Sony removed USB save backups on PS5. Disgraceful. Yeah. Yes. I understand it, you see, because from an IT perspective, Pete, if you've got a USB port that you can put any USB stick into, you've got what they call an exploit, which could be used for jailbreaking and all that sort of stuff. So it makes perfect sense that they disabled the USB port for memory type access and then make it a cloud system, because then they keep it in-house.
That's true.
And you tie down a jailbreak. You see what I mean? This is what we do at the government. If I build a laptop, you can't put any old memory stick in. It turns around and says, sorry, don't recognize this device. But the only thing that would work is a mouse and a keyboard. Everything else is locked. It has to be a specific driver and set and version, etc., for it to work, and it makes it more robust. It's just business. But I get what Steve's saying, because if you had that flexibility before, why can't you have that flexibility now?
Yeah.
Why can't you give us, therefore, then a USB stick that we can buy, that we can do on our... Why is it that we have to keep going down the internet route? Why have I got to be online all the time? All those whys are there, but you know what I mean? And I totally get it. I'd buy a £5 USB stick and say, stuff your gaming service and use that USB stick, and it would be their design USB stick, which means there'd be no exploit.
Yeah, it makes more sense to do it, but they just want another loophole to get people to subscribe to their online services.
Yeah, that's what I see it as. I totally agree with that. Marvel fan, hi all, how are you? Brilliant, Marvel fan. Thank you very much for being here. LFC Gamer Vlogs. Have a great night all. I'm up early tomorrow. Take care. Yes, because it's bank holiday Monday, and I am conscious of the time as well. Are you okay, Pete? We're getting quite far down the comments, but I just want to make sure you're not too tired. Or
yeah, I'm okay at the moment. Keep going on for a little while longer.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for staying with me. Cauldron of Stardust, Steve's Gaming. Yeah, they're predators. I may sound like a Nintendo fanboy, but that company is an absolute demon. Yep. I just think they make good products, but as a company, they're a monster. Questions to both. Why is it acceptable that if you don't accept the terms and conditions of a game, you can't play it? Because you open the box and put the disc in, you can't get your money back either. Yeah. It's all this digital platform nonsense that the legal bindings are on. They will turn around and obviously say, this is what they want to say. This is what they want to say to the world. This IP is ours. It's always going to be ours. We're letting you play a game with an IP, but we want you to play the game. So if you sign this agreement, we'll let you play the game for as ever long as we deem fit, and we can call that in whenever we want. That's it. Basically, all the terms and conditions pretty much say that in some form, and it's a bunch of nonsense, because as far as I'm concerned, you bought a disc, it goes into a machine that I bought the disc, I've put it into the machine that you've allowed me to play it on. As far as I'm concerned, it's not yours anymore. It's mine.
It's a sad thing to think pretty much all modern video game collections you don't really own, because they can turn the servers off like that. I was told before, and it's very true, as soon as you open up that seal of a game, you've entered into that contract with that gaming company.
That's right.
It's such a strange way to think, whereas like 20 years ago, you just buy a game, put it in, and have a good time. Now it's a legally binding agreement that you basically sell your soul to these companies, saying that you can monitor my game time, check out my stats, and see how long I play. And if you decide in your infinite wisdom to turn the game off of the servers, I can't do a single thing about it or get my money back.
No. And shops have another law as well that say if you've opened this package, we won't accept it back. If it's unopened, you can bring it back and we'll give you a refund. So as soon as you've opened it, that's it. Bang. So it's absolutely, it's two laws. And then you've got an international law as well, which sort of like supposed to overlap the American law and our law if you're buying something from America. Do you see what I mean? The international law takes precedence because you bought it across another plane of purchase. Do you see what I mean? That's just atrocious, really, to be quite honest. It's all a big mess. And all they need to do is just basically make it simpler. Cauldron of Stardust, Steve's Gaming. I'm not sure they find that concept acceptable. No, I bet they don't. Steve's Gaming. I've had several games that did that. I couldn't accept, and I didn't get my money back. It's not on. No, I agree with you. You know, back in the day, I bought no end of stuff, and I haven't been able to take it back. And they've said this, that, and the other, and I've turned around and said, "I'm sorry, but the Consumer Act says that I can bring this back," and they've said, "Don't give a shit." That's happened. It's happening all the time. Jim Jam Movies. What's your go-to snack when watching movies? A nice movie one as a break, an interlude.
don't really have many snacks when eating, but I'd say probably a trusty old Aero bar. That's really a nice little snack.
That's an easy one to hide.
Yeah.
So this is when you're at home, are you? I was thinking more at the cinema, but right, yeah, okay. When I'm at home, okay. What's a snack that I like? I still like making popcorn because I've got a popcorn maker.
Mm.
I like getting that popcorn maker out when I'm about to watch a film. Trouble is, what I'll normally do is I'll usually put the telly on and the film and everything in, and I'd probably just have a big bag of Walkers
Mm.
and a can of Coke by the side of me.
Yeah.
And then if I feel peckish after that, then I'll basically pause the film because I can do that because I'm not in the cinema. And then bugger off and get another packet of crisps, and this time it'll be a different flavour or something like that. That's what I like about the cinema because you don't usually get out of your seat once you've sat in it.
No, that's
You know what I mean? You walk in, you pay your ticket, you get to the kiosk, and you go, "Yeah, I'll have a popcorn and I'll have a drink." Then you're there with the ticket standing in your little fingers there while you're holding these bloody Coke and a bloody popcorn there, and you go, "Take the ticket, please." And he has to put it back in your little fingers, and then you got to find your seat, and then I can finally put it into the bloody holders and go that. And then when the film starts, it's like, oh well, I've run out of Coke, and there's about.
I just bring everything like it's a picnic.
I can imagine you bringing a hamper.
Yeah.
It's got Winnie the Pooh written on the top.
Got a Coca-Cola like freezer bag full of stuff and just bring it in. Oh, I've been shopping.
Yeah, bring an ice cooler bag.
Yeah. I went in the other week with a box of Strepsils in my hand. She said, "Why are you taking Strepsils in?" I said, "I got sore throat." She said, "Of all the things people have bought in, I've never seen somebody bring a box of Strepsils in."
Oh, back in the day, because Canon cinemas were terrible in my hometown. They frog marched you out of the cinema if you brought even a can of Coke in. You had to time the opening up of the can of Coke with the Pearl and Dean advert. Right, as soon as it went da 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 da, you went. Shh. Right, and you could hear it across the whole of the cinema. Everybody opening their cans at the same time. It was almost like bloody hell, because it's just expensive.
It is.
I've said it a million times before, and I'll say it for the last time right now. They make 900% profit virtually out of food. Popcorn is made of air. The Coke is syrup and carbonated water.
Yeah.
It'll cost you 30 pence to get all of those goods up together. They're going to charge you for a meal deal, and it'll cost you close to a tenner.
We had popcorn and some Doritos. That was 15 quid.
Yeah. Now Doritos. I mean, I hate paying £2.25 when I go to Sainsbury's to buy a bag of them. Let alone 15 quid with melted cheese on and a bloody sod you. That's all I gotta say. Cauldron of Stardust. In the USA, we love gridiron football, aka American football, and Madden does the same thing as FIFA. It's the same stinking game every year. Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty is trash. Yeah. I mean, it is very true. The football was the same, FIFA was the same, and to an extent, although I miss it a lot, Fight Night. I used to love the Fight Night series of games, but it all then turned into Universal bloody fighting champion crap. But and again, the reason the Fight Night series died was because the boxers got greedy for their likenesses in the game. Simple as that. So you could pay the UFC fighters a pittance compared to getting Buster bloody Merrifield or and all of the estate of Muhammad Ali or Tyson. I mean, Christ, how much would Tyson turn and say, "Oh, you want my likeness in that game, dear? All right, then, $1 million." You know what I mean? Stupid. But I miss the Fight Night games. Really do miss those. I can't play Animal Crossing. I love relaxing games, but the voices do my head in. Oh, and Nook is a bastard. See how much I like Steve. He's just down to earth. Look at the bastard. Steve's gaming nook is coming for my kneecaps over this debt. You know what they're talking about, because I haven't played Animal Crossing.
Tom Nook's the character that invites you to the island, and then you have to pay a mortgage off to him.
Oh, sod him!
And every time you pay the mortgage off, you got to pay some more. And you go into his shop, and he'll follow you around everywhere like you're going to nick something.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I'd soon fall out of this Nook character if that's how that works. Him and me would be having a talk behind the back of the shed or something, and he might find his kneecaps broke if that's allowed in the game. Because I tell you, that's what I'd be doing. LOL. I'll just start as Playtendoguy. Nailed it with the perfect timing of ACNH being launched right at the start of the pandemic.
Animal Crossing.
Yeah, Animal Crossing. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not. I will get used to that Animal Crossing AC. I'll remember that for next time. Stardust. I just played it so much and loved it so much. I finally asked myself, have I enjoyed any other game released after 1999 as much as this? And the answer was no. Nothing has touched me like this. Thinking back, Pete, is there a game now that you think that you've put more hours in and it's still a game from the past rather than a game that you're intending to play this year or currently playing? Because there are ones like that with me. Guild Wars 2 I played, it must be 5 years, and I was on it every couple of days, spending at least a couple of hours because it was an MMO, so it's expected a little bit. But for you, with your console knowledge and all of that,
I remember the remake of GoldenEye on the Wii. I played that religiously for like 3 or 4 years. I put about 2,500 hours into it.
Would you really like to know if somebody could give you the key to the Wii where you could open it up and then find out exactly how many hours it was? Would you be interested in knowing how many hours you put into that game?
Oh, it used to say on the profile it did, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. That's good, because Guild Wars does the same. You can actually look and see how many hours you were in it. But I always turned around and said, it's not an accurate thing, though, because half the time I might have been in the menu system while I went off and had me tea or something and then came back. The amount of times that I did that, and sometimes I might have left it on when I went to sleep, the bed, up in the morning and just continued from where I was. So it's a bit difficult to say exactly how long you were playing it, if you see what I mean. An interesting question and all that on that one. Marvel fan, gaming consoles. I remember having a Nintendo DS, Nintendo Wii, a PSP, and an Xbox 360. Nice to see some people start mentioning the Xbox. I know you didn't have one, but I must admit I did. In many ways, I do like the way that the Xbox works over the PlayStation with its emote engine and all of this.
The Xbox 360 was huge back in the day. It was.
I mean, it didn't get off to the most audacious of starts with its red ring of death and all of this sort of stuff. The X clamp that was there that was causing the motherboards to swell and buckle and all that sort of stuff. But it's nice that those things are rarely talked about now. It was a thing for a number of years, and then the reliability is there now to stop you from really talking about it much now. Pro Evolution Soccer was better than FIFA. I liked Pro Evolution Soccer better than FIFA, but I like that ISSA football that became Pro Evolution Soccer before that. I think it was called ISSA, International Superstar something or other. Cauldron of Stardust. If we're talking about aesthetically beautiful console, I say the original PS2, especially when played vertically, and it was a tray loader, which I love. I thought that the PS2 was very uninspiring. Personally, it was just a black, thin, sort of like a grooved machine with just a simple PS2 symbol on the top. In fact, the PS3 had more design over it with that Spider-Man font for the PlayStation and the little flap, and all of that. I thought that was a better design than the PS2. Well, but then again, I don't have much memories for the PS2. What did you have memories of the PS2 at all?
I never had a PS2, but
No.
its looks always was iconic. It was that
Yeah.
like the black design, how it looked vertically. I think it was just simple, and that's what how it worked. It wasn't trying to go like
Yeah.
over the top like the PS5. It was just
Simplistic elegance, isn't it? Simplistic elegance. And I think I'm in the minority. I think a lot of people love the PS2 look. I'm just turning around and saying, really, because I didn't really get one. I had one for the shortest period of time. In fact, I think I switched it on twice. That's how long I had it for.
Mm.
I just never really fell in love with it. You know, you think sometimes it takes time for somebody to fall in love with something. You know what I mean? Its looks. I just thought it was very simplistic and bland. When you consider what the Xbox was, and the Xbox 360 with its lovely silvery top and the hard drive that looked like it had a little lump on the top and all of this sort of stuff. I mean, that was designs to me. Anyway, I need to shut up or we'll never get these come to these comments. Yeah. Steve's Gaming. I used to strip my PS4 down every 3 to 4 months and clean the fan and heatsink. It's not hard. It was quieter afterwards. I must admit the PS4 is an easy console to clean down because it's just those simple slide off plastic bits, and the fan is actually one of the first things you can get to. You don't have to take any metal heat sink apart to get to it. See what I mean? Danny Jukes, love the stream. Thank you so much, Danny. Brilliant. Got in the post today, Quadrophenia on Blu-ray. What a film.
great
Now,
film.
even I like Quadrophenia.
Mm.
Thoughts on Quadrophenia if you've ever seen it?
I really like it. Great film, great cast. You got Toya Wilcox in it, Sting.
Yeah.
It's a really good film, and hopefully it will get a 4K release soon. It seems like
wouldn't that
it's
be nice?
begging for it.
Yeah. What about Easy Rider?
I haven't seen Easy Rider.
No?
No.
Another bikey American one though.
Yeah, more. It's again set in the 60s, isn't it?
Yeah, around it's at that time in Hollywood where everything was tied into the Vietnam War in some way, and it was two motorbikelists going across the country. Whichever way you look at it, there'd be a reference to Vietnam or something in it. The music is iconic because it's that particular period of time. It'd be the Doors and all of that sort of stuff, music in it. Yeah, but Quadrophenia, iconic soundtrack, iconic British stars in it, lovely mods and all of that sort of stuff. It's a piece of time that is nice to go back to as well, because I think it's an interesting story. It's quite good. Cy Robson, last night was a proper grown-up conversation about film. It definitely felt more mature than other streams. Now, this is what I want you to take away. That's the best comment that I've actually seen in here. When you see other chats, Pete, this is what I'm trying to get at. And I'm a person now that's just going into chats and interacting. Okay. You're at the mercy of the people that are asking you a question. And if it's the same people, then sometimes those questions can get a bit too much. But then on the other hand, if the people on the other side are repeating same jokes or same answers, it's equally as boring. So basically what can happen is it can get very stagnant very, very quickly. Now, everybody that I've ever seen in a stream handles that incredibly well. But you can't handle it very well unless you can actually read through the questions quickly and avoid the hellos to us and the conversations that are going on. And I think Keith's got the perfect idea, and this is kudos to them. They've got a moderator now looking at the questions, and actually when they're read out, they delete them or from one side, so that basically what they're seeing then is a quintessentially just the questions. I think is a marvelous thing to do. When you're by yourself and me, we're doing this is why it's going so slow, is because I keep bloody talking. Bloody useless I am.
That's one of the things about streams is you can get lost in the conversation and completely forget about the comments. It's amazing, really.
Yeah. But I'm just basically saying, Pete, that I think you've got that. What happened last night was a very mature. What we were saying, you had Amy. This is another exclusive type thing. To have Amy in the same room as you,
Yeah.
so that she can basically give another insight at the same time as you, and then Terence will then come in, and Jamie and Ryan that were in the stream yesterday. They all come in with their input, and you've basically got a very, very unique chat, because how many chats can you see where there's two people in the same room together talking?
That's true. That's true.
Which is why I said bring Amy on if she wants to have
Yeah.
a chat. I don't mind. It'd be bloody marvelous. I've hardly spoken to her, to be quite honest. I feel I'm the only one who doesn't know her very well, because everybody else has.
She's about to go to bed early because she starts a new job tomorrow.
I know, you said it's such a shame. But I do feel that way. I thought, I've hardly ever, I don't know what she thinks about me. She just thinks probably that fat bastard.
She's going to come and join on every Saturday night stream. She really wants to. She enjoys it a lot.
Yeah, because I mean, she's got a sort of like addictive sort of like attitude to things. Do you know what I mean? She starts talking about Fellini, and I'm going, oh, now I'm awake. Fellini, I don't know too much about Fellini. She's going to start talking. I want to know. I'm like this. Yeah. You see what I mean? So please pass that on to her and say that I'm really looking forward to it. Someday coming onto your channel and having a chat with her. I have an arcade machine in my man cave with over 300 classic games. Nothing after 1994. I have it plugged in a minute due to the man cave being upside down. Time to rectify that, I think. Yes. Certain arcade machines now are coming with 300 or so. MAME has made that, which is called Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator, by the way, Pete, has made the ability to you to have a PC inside a cabinet and choose all the arcade games through the decades. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely marvelous. Emulation has opened my eyes. Technology opened my eyes. Emulation. Cy Robson, not to sound misogynistic. I can never pronounce that very well. I know what you mean. But have you heard that there is an all-female version of Fight Club in the works? What the actual fuck? Have they learned a lesson from Ocean's 8? Again, what? WTAF. What the actual fuck? Opinion on that. It's I don't like woke. I don't like this gender changing over. I don't like this reimagination of something just because somebody thinks that it was all male orientated, so we ought to have our version of it. What a load of crap. At some point somebody's going to turn around and say, do you know what, I don't like the fact that Enid Blyton's dog, they were all males. I think I'll have a female dog now in all the books from now on, because it's unfair that it was a male dog all the time. You know what I mean? What world are we living in?
It's true.
For fuck's sake.
What it is it's not the fact that they want to make new films with female stars. Is stop remaking stuff or gender swapping stuff. Just make new original films. That's all you got to do. Easiest thing ever. But the problem is, it's Hollywood in general lacks a lot of originality.
Yeah.
And that's why they rather re-release something, remake it, like The Crow. 4.8 million that took at its weekend box office. Absolutely,
isn't it?
Yeah, a pitiful amount. It's like, stop remaking stuff, start creating new stuff. Because what are you going to remake in 20, 30 years' time?
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, Through the Lens has done a review, but I haven't read his review yet because I haven't seen the film. I wasn't a big fan of The Crow, the original one. I remember being back in the day, you see, when that comic was an indie comic, and I read it. And at the same time, Spawn, McFarlane had basically created Spawn and set up a new company called Image. And Spawn and The Crow sort of came out not together, but close to each other. And the one that won the most, that got the most money, was Spawn, but only by reputation of the comic.
Mm.
Spawn is an awful film.
Yeah.
It is dog shite. It is dog shite on the bottom of my shoe. Walking across a field full of dog shite. That's what that is. And The Crow is better, but not by much, and is recognized really because of what happened to Brandon Lee more than anything that happened in the film. It's not that exciting a film, and it's not that new an idea. You know, a bloke coming back for revenge. Oh, that's new, isn't it? No, it's not. You know, it's so making another one of it.
Yeah.
Well, unless that character's also been killed on set, I don't see how that one's going to make any money. You know, I'm a fossil, so what am I to say? So Cy Robson is carrying on with the Fight Club. It's going to be directed by Greta Gerwig, starring Margot Robbie and Charlize Theron. Again, what the actual... Well, I'll tell you what, Charlize Theron, I wouldn't want to tackle her. Have you ever seen her in Monster? Bloody hell, she was right.
Oh yeah, she's
right. She can handle herself. I tell you that. Margot Robbie, yeah. I mean, Suicide Squad and all of that sort of stuff. She can hold her own. Greta Gerwig. I'm not quite sure what films Greta Gerwig has done. Do you recognize the director name?
Barbie. Greta? That's what she's done.
Barbie. Oh Christ! You were talking about Barbie last night, weren't you? I'm one of these people, by the way, that don't get tied up by the name and what the actual thing is. When I went in there, I didn't think play toy model. It's a name Barbie. I know it's a toy line. And that meant I knew its color palette was probably going to be restricted to pinks and that. But other than that, it could be any story, couldn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I draw the line possibly at me going to see a film called My Little Pony or something like that, because, you know, I'm not really into Starbright and all that sort of shit. But Barbie, supposed to be a girl in it, and a beautiful one. And Ken with no genitals. But anyway, Cy Robson. To say I'm upset is an understatement. Yeah, I can totally understand that side. And I'm with you to a huge extent in the fact that Fight Club is good as it is, and Ed Norton and all of that did a perfect job at the time, and it doesn't really need a reimagination. The one thing that I was screaming at yesterday with you, Pete, was I'm totally in disagreement for them to do another Naked Gun. Naked Gun should stay where it is. Leslie Nielsen was perfect. I don't care how funny Liam is going to be, whether he's the grandson, granddaughter, grandfather, or whatever it is. Stay away from it. Keep it as it is. I'm happy with the memory I've got of it.
Yeah.
It's going to be like Steve Martin playing the Pink Panther.
That's the worst case scenario. Hopefully it'll be good, but yeah, it probably will be awful. But apparently the writer who they've got in is quite a talented, like, comedy writer.
You'd have to have the Zuckerberg, you know. I mean, you'd have to have the original joke writers of that to make that work.
And also, in the current environment, will that humor work? Will they be able to go as far? That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's very difficult because they'll probably be shot down by everybody. I mean, you can't get away with Blazing Saddles anymore and Frankenstein and all that sort of stuff. You just can't. Nigel, Delboy, you're such a nice guy, honestly. Oh, thank you so much. I've got somebody saying nice things to me. I have my own stream. I am taken aback. Thank you very much. Always seem very modest and humble, but most importantly, you're very noble and educated with great knowledge on films. You come across very academic, and I like that. Saying that, I can't pronounce certain words. About you keep up the great work. Well, I'll certainly try. I'm not street cred. You know, I'm not with the big boys and all of that sort of stuff, and I definitely learn from these guys. You know, I've learned so much, you know, from you, Pete, from Rock God, from Ryan, from Ian Hill, the ramblings I've learned no end of. Bloody hell. Who'd have thought, you know, I mean, Jesus Christ. It's such a nice guy and just so knowledgeable, and gives me all the time I need to say whatever I want. I mean, at the end of the day, I look forward to Wednesdays every Wednesday. I do now. And he says at the end, Deli Welly. I will let him get away with Deli Welly. I have actually used that on occasion when I've sent gifts to people. There are only certain people that will get away with calling me that. Pete is one of them. And I might let you, Menagel, even, you know, being as I sort of know you now and you've said such nice things. Anyway, Steve's Gaming. I still have a Vita and it had an adapter inside it which allows me to use normal SD cards. Yes, that's mine. It's a not jailbroken, but it's got an SD card reader in it that basically allows it. Cy Robson says, didn't Alex Guinness get a great deal for Star Wars? He got something like a percentage of the box office of the toy sales. George Lucas did. Alec Guinness said, what a load of trash this is, and I don't understand the gobbledygook. And he may have got some type of deal on his likeness, maybe, because he obviously appeared in the second film, you know, The Empire Strikes Back. Obviously a sad loss to us all, but I don't remember ever hearing about him dying a rich man or incredibly rich, modest. There you go. Steve's Gaming. I'm quite amazed people are sick of the same games being recycled every Nintendo console. Mario, Zelda, Pokemon. How many times do you want to play the same game? Agree and disagree again. This is where me and Steve, we get on like a house on fire, because I'll walk down the middle road and he'll go totally to one direction, right? It's not the same game, Mario, just because it's a platform game and it's basically on its side. There will be differences that make it a different game. And Zelda, exactly the same thing.
It seems like every time they reinvent the wheel, they do reinvent the wheel each time with a new Mario and a new Zelda. They do something different, and it's just like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the only similarity between Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine is the 3D aspect.
Yeah.
The whole mechanic is different. The whole premise of water and all of this sort of stuff to fly around and all of that sort of stuff. The whole island thing is different to the house idea.
Mario Galaxy, incredible.
Yeah. So it isn't the same game, but it's the same character playing similar things. I'd agree with. Do you see what I mean? I don't really know enough about Pokemon.
Pokemon is very similar. They have the gameplay was pretty much perfect when it was conceived, but like they keep adding little extra wrinkles to it, but it's still the same game at heart. It's mostly just new areas and new Pokemon.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say to Steve, I'm 70% behind you on that one, Steve, because yes, it is similar and it is along the same lines, but they are different games. It's not like they've put they've just changed the engine. You know what I mean? There are differences in the mechanics and everything. So typo there. Like I said, Pete, the joy brings is unbelievable, but it's great to see Amy and all. It's a bonus. The Pete and Amy show. Well, I must admit, it's very unique. The Pete and Amy show. I have to turn around and say it's great, really. I think that's very unique. Very unique amongst YouTubers to have in the same room. You know what I mean? Cauldron of Stardust. I have zero shame bringing my own food to a movie theater. I'm not spending $6 for a small box of South Patch Kids. That should be illegal. I'm bringing in my own. Yeah. And if you can get away with it, brilliant. Sometimes it's a bit more difficult in Britain. I used to take a great big bloody trench coat with the biggest bloody pockets you could actually ever get. And it's made of wool. And I tell you what, it's sweltering. I'll tell you when you got inside there. You had to take the damn But I tell you what, the big pocket's really out. Cauldron of Stardust. I love hearing Dale's outraged reaction to his first time hearing about the antics of everyone's favorite capitalist Japanese raccoon, Tom Nook. Yeah, I really would. I'd take him round the back and show him certainly what a bloody mortgage looks like. Tell you, he wouldn't last 30 seconds with me. You're right, Golden Stardust. I would too. It's the minimal look of the PS2 with its all 90-degree angles that I love about the PS2. The grooves on it remind me of the Seagram building beams in the New York City. I'm a fan of minimal. Yeah, that's where I was saying I think it was probably the fact that I only had it for a short period of time and its minimalist look didn't gel with me, but that would be something that would gel with me if I looked at it for a longer period of time. Just bear with me a moment. So it's got here, I might actually see the new Crow movie because I heard it's so bad it's good movie, and I'm a lover of so bad it's good, but that's not really a good thing for the film now, is it? I don't know. Del, I like you a lot. You know I do. Keep it that way. Let's not attack My Little Pony. Then you got the MW2 online lobbies on Xbox 360 work for the faint of heart. The best days of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And we got the last comment coming up. A very large chunk of Star Wars budget did go to getting Alec Guinness. Yes, he was the highest paid actor in that movie by a massive margin. He got quite a nice payday for playing Obi-Wan.
Wow.
It's brilliant.
That's cool.
And that's the end.
Wow.
And Cauldron says at the end, woo, we've caught up.
And it's been a brilliant stream. Thanks ever so much for the invite, Delboy. It's been a lot of fun.
No, not a problem. It's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it. Anything that you'd like to say at the end of this, Pete? Because I think it's been absolutely wonderful having you on. I've really enjoyed every moment of it with you. We've talked about a number of things that I thought were absolutely, brilliant. I can't thank you enough. Anything that you want to talk about that's coming out in the future from you?
Wow. Probably some more videos, some more uploads of hauls. Want to do probably move into doing some movie reviews. I keep saying it, and obviously going to keep doing some streams again. Hopefully, keep doing them on a Saturday night, and love to get you back on in a few weeks' time, Delboy, as well.
That'd be really nice. I'd look forward to that. Thank you very much. Like I say, everybody needs to have their own turn. There's nothing wrong with that. I just love coming on and chatting with you. Especially if it's audacious comments that are coming through that I can gel with. Of course, if it's something that I don't know too much about, it can be not great. But I hope everything in here was something that you could recognize with. Anything you want to say to the people for chatting? I want to just say thanks to everybody that turned up.
Thanks so much for everybody who joined, and it was great to see some new people here that I've never heard of before, and also some great people who've come over from my channel as well. It's great. Thanks ever so much.
And I'm just going to say, if you can, please like this, but please subscribe to Pete's channel. Pete's channel has been around for a long period of time, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't subscribe to him. If you do, you'll see all the alerts, and you'll know exactly when his chats are on. His chats are always very varied, very knowledgeable. You'll learn an awful lot, and that's all I can say really. Other than I'm going to say salute now. Now, do you have a way that you end your stuff, Pete, at the moment? Do you go salute or anything like this?
I'll just say see you all next time. Bye.
So I'm going to say salute. Thank you to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.